think.
So Janet, I hasn't come in and
What
do
it
much
comes down to
talking.
is that, you're going to come down to some centers at some point, so.
I mean, we were going through, the ordinance and bylaws a while back, could have come and sat with those over evening meetings.
Why do I think?
Hey, I learned a lot in those. I thought they were very beneficial.
No, it was, that's.
I like to jump back into it too.
I think you get a much better perspective when all else is talking about it, and you hear how people are interpreting it. Every definition makes sense.
Come over. Hey, if you look over here, and I'm just kind of sitting here on Google and stuff, you'll, okay.
Yeah. And I'll be like this. My wheels are gonna be like this.
I could have brought you some more
We
too,
have a problem.
that you looked up. You ever had any supplements, have you, on R2, oxygen or anything?
Have I been?
Yeah.
No. No, do you feel comfortable if I don't wear it? They
Well,
told me
that's what I was
before.
thinking. Ryan, I think, wants to sit here tonight.
I said, well, I'm not shot.
I'm okay. So am I.
They called this morning, the guy asked him, is there any way? They said, no, it's 12 days out, and I should. I don't mind wearing this except my glasses.
No soccer people.
No, I said, they called like 2 or 3 days ago and said, hey, some people had something come up, they can't come. Like, seriously?
Circle.
Right?
Like, I don't do this ever.
Right.
I got no word, I'm sorry. I'm like, we'll just table it to next meeting.
How's
It
Jerry?
should be fine, but
It's nice.
It's too bad. Is Reed coming? So I got a few questions.
Let's see, we're going to have a special reverence tonight by Rajan Zed, who is president of the Universal Society of Hinduism.
oh, that's right, that was awesome.
Awesome.
So if you could have someone volunteer for the pledge, that would be great.
I'm waiting for that.
That's in Zoom, right? Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah. And then enable. Okay. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, thanks. Okay. Bye.
Yeah, I'm not really understanding why these are on here, but let's see.
Which ones?
These bottom two.
As we asked to get on there.
Number 6 will be tabled.
Six isn't gonna put on there.
Okay, but why is it even on there?
Because we asked them to
Maybe
put it
first
on.
has to get on there. But I didn't think that was it. I thought it was had
Which-
to do with soccer
I don't think it should
fields.
be tabled, I think it should be dismissed. What do we do? There's no action
Why
to
does it
take
say
on
that?
it.
There's no action.
Oh, no, it's soccer field, yeah, I don't know.
Let's see, go
That's
ahead.
not what we said.
That shouldn't even say that. It should
Yeah.
say something about soccer fields,
Yeah, it was the soccer field,
not
the
subdivision.
soccer field
concept.
concept.
Oh, because seriously,
So, Teresa, so what do I do with my
Well,
presentation?
So it's fine, we can fix it.
I mean, it's ready to
It was a soccer
open.
concept, soccer.
Do I share my screen like I do with regular ones?
Yeah, so when you have
They
it
were
open,
gonna come
yours
just tell us about
Present.
it.
turn
Tuesday.
your mic off.
that makes more sense because if it's just because there's a developer that's disgruntled
No.
and wasn't happy with the concept meeting, that's not right.
Because we did have a concept.
Yeah.
Actually, even they could get on the agenda if they have to
And I
come.
can just share my screen.
Yeah, yeah, just like a normal
You're on the
meeting, so
agenda.
I'll
Joe off the street and
request
walk
to
in and
share
say,
it and I'll authorize it and then.
Councilman Cox, Councilman
that's
Hill,
what
we
they'll
allow me
see
on the agenda to
here.
talk about whatever, and they can get on, if the councilman will represent it.
Is that,
That's part of the bylaws.
We just went over that.
I know we did, but is that efficient? Is that way?
Well,
So,
we
you know,
certainly wouldn't want to stop that. You know, we wouldn't want to say that, well, council members can't bring stuff on the
I
agenda. But
understand.
I think everybody would know if there's something that is warrants being on the agenda.
Okay,
Well,
it's good to understand what the issue is.
maybe we could go ahead and get started here as far as, okay, so we do have a pledge by Councilman Cox tonight, and then we're going to have what I would consider kind of a special reverence, and this will be by Zoom. And this will be from the president of the Universal Society of Hinduism. So they contacted us and wanted to provide a reverence.
Great.
So as far as a work session, Sherry, you thought there were some questions some of the council had on the cemetery that maybe you could clarify a little bit. Is that a good time to do that during this work session, or?
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay, well, I heard it was mentioned about the increase for our spatial generations program. So I just wanted to explain just a little bit what it was. Was that not?
Cemetery.
What is that?
Oh, I'm sorry, cemetery.
What's the spatial generation?
So that is the program we use for the cemetery. And the budget had increased the $5,000.
That was it's the software.
It's the cemetery software that we were
That we
doing
talked
an
about.
increase of 5,000.
So the discussion that came up in our budget.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you now. I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know what you're talking about.
Okay, so I just want to explain real quick. So
Me
we
too.
have a computer program
Down
that
there.
lists everybody that's been buried in
Oh,
our
maybe we have a
cemetery.
Chixie down there
That would
anyway.
be good. All their information, birth date, death date, burial date, parents, wife, next of kin, all of that. To my knowledge, for at least 10 years, and I don't know prior to that, we have never had an increase in the program, ever. No matter whether I call, which I have on a regular basis, and ask questions, we never had an increase. So, I know you probably won't even be able to see this, but let me just pull up somebody, and then I can just show you how we really do need this. So I just happened to pick a random name, like Clarence Paulson, for example. Yeah.
He's very random, that guy.
But so what we end up having on our program then is we end up with this map of the cemetery, like this. So if ever you've had to come in to buy a plot or anything, I probably pulled this up for you. It has all the information. So what is happening with this is the program right now is on a computer, and it is the office computer, and now I have this remote one because I do a lot of cemetery stuff even when I'm home and not in the office, because we have people that die during the weekend when our office is closed. So what it's going to be, it's an updated version, it's going to be online, and it's kind of like when we went from WordPerfect to Microsoft, and everybody said, WordPerfect, we love WordPerfect. Well, eventually it was phased out, and you had to switch, whether you were old school like me or not. That's kind of this. So I'm sure Teresa mentioned last time, it's $4,600 to get everything all upgraded, and then after that it'll be $1,300 a year. So I called around to some other cities to see what programs they were using. And this is just a partial list because then I quit writing them down. But so there is Clinton, Syracuse, Kaysville, Draper, Centerville, Linden, Pleasant Grove, Morgan, Salt Lake, and then I kind of quit writing. When I called up to Roy, she said, "What? You have a program?" She said, "We're still just doing a paper on maps."
Paper and pencil.
Yes, and she said,
And I'm calling
"Please
Casey
send me."
right now.
And she said, "Please send me the information." And so I did. When I called Ogden City to see what they did, they have an IT program at Ogden City because they're a lot larger than us, and their IT staff has designed their own program. Pretty much everybody else has to have some kind of program. And I know Teresa probably mentioned we had Cassell come and do a presentation, but it did not support, it didn't have any mapping. And you have to have a map. If not, you're Roy City, that you pull out that map and you cut and paste a little block and says, okay, we want to bury, Sherry Bingham in this block because there's one there for her. So does that, and any other questions on that? I know it's an increase, but like I say, as long as I've been here, as long as Shauna was here prior to me, I think we actually purchased this program back when it was Loretta Julander, and we've never had a price increase at all of anything. And one really good thing about having it be online is on a regular basis, every week, I have like a monument company that will call and say, we're coming to install a headstone. So you go to the cemetery, and we're in the process of getting a map that's going to be installed because an Eagle Scout's doing that for us. But so I have to send them a copy of the map so when they come they can find it, because even if Public Works has marked it, still you could be wandering around quite a while. Well, it'll be online, they can look it up. So we're coming to install a headstone for Gregory Belknap. They can go onto the website and look, or anybody else could go on the website, because again, we have people that call all the time and say, I think my great-great-grandma was buried in Hooper, and then it's just a little bit of a research process.
That's awesome. You know, that's great. It's great.
So any other questions? I mean, I feel like that's a when we discussed it quite a bit in the office, like I said, I called around to see if there was any better thing, but no, pretty much everybody uses this because it's such a good program.
I think that was the question that we had was, are there other comparable programs
Right,
Yeah.
that we just looked at? I mean, obviously, if that's what there is,
right.
and it's a good program, then
Well, and one thing too, like West Haven, when I talked to Brock, he said, one thing that's a little scary is everything we have, all of our cemetery right now is housed on a computer. If we happen to lose that computer, but now when it will be online and through web, yes. And one thing that Ogden City suggested to me was, she said there is like a Utah State website, and she gave me all that, and I just briefly had a chance to look at it, but I haven't yet, but we can actually get our records archived. And she said they had received a grant to help them do all of that, which wouldn't be a bad idea either. Because one thing about our cemetery, we have people that died in the middle 1800s. We have as old as cemetery, and we're still growing. Roy City has they've sold all their plots. West Haven's still new, so he said, you know what, we have and they don't have old, and we have old, so we don't want to lose these records. But any other questions you can think of?
So that
With
is,
that?
I have worked that into the budget, like we did talk about last week, so it is still there. So when we get to the budget, approval thing, that's still in there, so. And I did make the changes to the budget that you guys requested last time.
Yeah, I don't know of any other. I've only ever used this, so I can't tell you I can compare one program to another. I've only ever used this, but I can tell you it's great. You know, I had a couple of people.
I've used Great Big Map before, and that's not so much fun.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we don't want to be
Alphabetical
Roy City.
names and.
So not that it really matters, because Sherry gave a great discussion, but I have the same, because the same people help me in my office. I'm not a GIS guy, I'm too old to learn all that, so. And so I had them take our city maps, our sewer maps, our secondary water map, that irrigation, and put it in this web-based mapping. So I don't have to go to somebody and say, hey, or have roll out a map. I just clicked on Google Chrome and a link, and my web-based maps come up, and somebody calls me about once a week, hey, what's the sewer line over there, because we're doing a project, and I instantly have, and so I have access, she'll be able to have the same type of thing, so.
well, it will be good. I mean, when she mentioned it, I thought, okay, I don't see any negatives in it, other than the first year it's going to cost us more, but like I said, anytime, I think when you're updating the first year, you pay more than it isn't, so. Okay,
Well, we did kind of reach out and had another presentation on this. Teresa and I sat in on it, and in fact, by the time we were done, they just flat out told us they really couldn't do everything that we'd hoped they could. So. Okay, are there any other, did you have any questions or anything on the minutes before we get started with our meeting that you need to discuss or anything like that? Is this staying on all the time?
No.
It's cutting in and out.
Did you have any questions on the
Can I make a
minutes?
suggestion? Can you try to use Reed's mic and see, because he has a long record, and let's see if that would work. And just not use your mic. And Reed and you will just have to be mic.
I'm not gonna let him touch it.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm just hoping it will pick up a little bit more. So we do have wipes and the sanitizers all right in front of you, Reed.
Okay.
So. I know. Or we can put Teresa's mic up to Reed, but I'm just wondering if maybe that mic will work a little bit better, because it's not the mic's problem, it's the connection problem that I keep fading in and out.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
That's much better.
oh, that's good.
It started in stereo. Right. So,
I'm gonna get this ready.
Yes, you better.
so did you have any questions on the minutes or from our last meeting?
It's looked fine.
Okay, so then, Any other things that we need to
Tell us
discuss?
how the sheriff's presentation went, the budget for the
Okay.
sheriff's contract.
I don't know how to, I've got really good words that would describe how that went.
I'm sure you do.
As you know, in the past, they've always based our contracted amount of money, 50% is on our population and 50% is on our calls. And what happens with a place like Hooper, where we have like the third largest city as far as contracted cities are concerned, population-wise, we're pretty good size. When it comes to the calls, we're not near. Oftentimes, not even a third, or as other areas where they're having calls. So what happens if there's a place where they have a lot of calls, but less population? I don't know how to demonstrate it other than if your calls are way up here, but you're only paying here based on their population, it's off. So if you just think that across the board until you get to Hooper, we have a population up here and our calls are down here. So if they're going to level the playing field for everyone, and if there's other cities who are, they have less population but a lot more calls, it's like they take part of our money and move it over to support them, and they just keep doing that until it kind of levels out. And so it's obvious what's happening, and in a really good way, it's good that Hooper's really would be considered a safe place to live, and we have few reasons for the sheriff's deputies to come out here, but in part of all of this discussion, we finally resolved that to make it the very best so it would be pretty good across the board. I mean, when they asked, Hooper's mayor what he thought, I said I think 100% ought to be calls. We just pay for the service that we get. It shouldn't have anything to do with population. But that really throws a wrench in things as far as how much money some cities would have to pay. But in all of our discussion, it finally was narrowed down to, well, how about a 70-30? And if you keep in mind that 100% of the deputies that are hired comes from the contract money, the contract city money. Our money doesn't go to take care of the Weber County Jail. It doesn't take care of the, the CSI, the criminal scene investigations and things like that. It just goes to hire new deputies. So if our contract money hires new deputies and some cities say, well, we need more deputies, that just keeps putting us deeper in the hole because now we're paying for service to go to another city. After we were all done with our first round of discussion, everybody kind of agreed that it went like there's 8 cities involved, and they leave it up for the cities to vote. And it came down to 4 against 4. So they let the unincorporated part of Weber County take a vote. And they voted, okay, we'll go 70-30. No sooner did he do that than someone jumped up and, we started out at 50-50 and now we're at 70-30. How about a 60-40? And then that was another hour's discussion about that. And, I think Hooper will be okay. I think we'll be fine. But the condition on us going with 60-40, instead of going from 500,000 a year up to 700,000 a year, is if they do not hire more deputies. If we keep it at that ratio of 60-40 and they do not hire more deputies, we'll stay the same where we've been this last year. If they start messing with those numbers, Hooper by far, even to the point of paying double per service call than other cities. And they try to attribute that to a lot of different things.
So in theory, ours should go down if we've raised the call percentage and lowered the population percentage, our total sum should go down. right?
Our total amount will go down, there's no question, and it's a big difference. I mean, you just take that 60-40 compared to 50-50, and it's really a big difference on what we pay.
So is there, how often do you have these negotiations? Once a year?
Once a year,
So you can go back and say, hey, we want 70-30 next year,
right.
or 60,
Well,
whatever.
Yeah, so there's 4 other cities, or 3 other cities besides ourselves that have been concerned about it. Again, I'll just say Hooper by far is getting the short end of the deal on this, because we pay nearly double what other cities who have less people, but a lot more calls.
i.e. West Haven.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we could call them out, but I don't know if,
I'm just saying, for
just
example.
saying.
They do have a lot of calls
Mhm.
too.
Tons.
If you read that report,
But,
Yeah.
and if,
It's 10 to 1.
if we were to talk about the whole discussion, I mean, sometimes they say, well, part of the reason Hooper is so, you have so few calls out there is because you don't have business, you send all your, okay, I'm kind of plugging in some words here, but all the people that go to shop at a Walmart or other places like that is where there's a lot more crimes committed, as though we don't have crime here because we're
But
going somewhere else to commit the
But they
crime.
also generate a lot more revenue on a commercial piece like that than
They-
we do on residential.
There's no question, they generate more revenue when it comes to property taxes. Sales tax, we still get our share across the state, and that's good, but where Hooper City does not have a property tax, you have a business move in, and you can pay a lot higher property tax, which should offset the increased crime, right? I mean, that's logically thinking, you'd say, well, if you've got all these businesses, then just raise the property tax and help cover the crime that's being committed in those areas. But anyway. I don't know if I explained that to where it makes a lot of sense. I mean, to look at the charts that they gave us, it doesn't make, when you look at it, it just doesn't even make sense, the graphs. And
And it's been that way for years,
it's been that way for a long time.
long time.
Even when Mayor Green was here, they tried to put GPS systems in all the police cars so that they could actually track how much time they were in any city. And that really, it showed that they spent very little time in Hooper. And then, of course, they used the example that, well, if you have a DUI in Hooper, it takes 15 minutes to get them in the cruiser, and then it takes 3 hours to book them over on 12th Street. So all the time spent on 12th Street and not in Hooper. That was one part of our discussion too. So I think there's no question we made some headway. I don't look to see the amount of money go up at all this year on our protection, and to all those who live in Hooper, I think it's just I think it's a real compliment to say that we have very few calls for the Sheriff's Department to come here to Hooper, and the best thing we can do to curtail that is just be good neighbors. You just get to know your neighbors well enough that if something just doesn't quite look right, you're able to recognize that.
Are we going to look into, I brought this up a few years ago, are we going to look into at some point, maybe thinking forward a little bit and getting our own small police department? Because $500,000 goes to the sheriff, right? Isn't that what it is? Roughly,
Yeah, it's
roughly around 500,000. You don't have to be too forward thinking. How many years would it take, to put in a small, I don't know. I would like to look at that because every year we spend $500,000 on the sheriff.
Yeah, I think it's pretty expensive. I think
Is it?
by the time your liability costs and
How much does North Ogden spend on theirs? A couple million.
So North Ogden has about 23 officers, though. They spend about 2.1 million.
That's a lot of officers.
They do have a police chief, they do have the full gamut. The one thing, when I was working with law enforcement and going to those meetings in my previous assignment, when Sheriff Arbon come on, what I think he did a really good job of, and it doesn't mean we're paying our fair share, but the value of what I guess you get by using a department like the Sheriff's Department, what he talked to us about, and this may or may not, ring true with you or not, but he said, you get more than the 2 or 3 officers that we have in town. If there is a large crime, we have a CSI investigation team that comes along with that. We have a drug enforcement and narcotics agency that comes along with that, specialist. So to get all the specialties that the Sheriff's Department has access to in your own little city police department could be quite costly. Could we get by? And I don't disagree. That was one thing.
Well, I mean, we don't need 23 officers. I'm thinking 1 or 2. I mean, how many would we have to have?
Well,
How many
the problem is it doesn't work that way. You've got to have 24-hour coverage, and so you've got to have
5 or 6 of them.
3 officers just to do 5 days a week. If you want to do it on weekends, you got to have another 2. If you want to take into account vacation and training time, you got to have another couple. So you're looking at probably 7 or 8 officers, and then you've got to have somebody in charge of those officers. You got to pay that person more. So the cost rolls
Yeah,
in.
Adds up pretty
When
fast.
Sheriff Arbon ran through, I was like, okay, I don't like what we're being taxed versus other cities by any means, because I agree with the mayor 100%. Like, we're not paying our fair share when it comes to call volume by any means. But the resources, and if you ever are interested, he's got a really good rollout of what those resources are and our availability as a city. And maybe we ought to have them come back in and do a presentation to us as a council and tell us about all the services that we have available.
Yeah, it is a good idea.
Deputy, wow, he's the second in charge. I forgot his name, but he lives in Woodward. So,
Oh, Brandon,
uh,
that lives up in East River.
yes,
Marijuana.
nope.
No.
He retired, but yeah, he did live there.
Yeah, there's another gentleman, and I can't think of it right now.
Well, the other thing to think about is only a portion of your time each day is spent in Hooper. The rest is spent somewhere else. So should you have to pay for the cost of law enforcement in the areas where you work and where you go to school and not just where you live. So that's also a factor.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting maybe for everyone to see that. I liked this presentation. It's very informative, because before I was like, why don't we just hire 3 or 4 officers and
Well, you mentioned North Ogden, so Mayor Berube, I think they're kind of looking at relooking at this. So did you mention they thought it was real efficient to have their own police department, or were they looking to maybe
Well,
start using
they're-
the sheriff's department?
So I don't know about the new mayor. Mayor Taylor is when I was talking to him before Mayor Taylor passed. They felt like they were pretty efficient, but where they're at now and what their expenses are, it may be much more than that. That dollar amount was given to me, I think, we talked a year or 2 ago, right, 3 years ago maybe, when we were talking more about law enforcement. So, but yeah, it can become expensive real fast, right?
Yeah. Well, they kind of brought up, talked a little bit about like the Marriott Slaterville area. They're going to put in that new Amazon distribution center out there, and I guess it's just huge. And wondered why, like Ogden City didn't pick up on that. But one of the reasons was that they'll have 800 vans that will leave. 800 vans will leave and come back every day. And so, but I hope Marriott Slaterville makes a ton of money with Amazon, because this will help. We'll start.
That'll level us up.
They'll help us level out a little better.
Well, there's going to be one in Tremont and another one in Brigham City probably in the next 5 years. So
You what?
there'll be another Amazon place in Brigham City and one in Logan probably in the next 5 years. So it's coming as well.
Amazon's taking over the world.
They need more money, don't they?
Hey, just a reminder to speak into your microphones. Pretend you like them a lot, okay? Because you're not all being picked up on Zoom, okay?
My wife's saying.
That clock is 2 minutes. So,
Yep, that's slow.
seeing it is close to 7 o'clock, we'll call this meeting to order for Clipper City Council for May the 6th, 2021. And as we mentioned, we'll have a pledge allegiance first, and then we'll have a reverence that will be provided by Rajan Zed, who is the president of the Universal Society of Hinduism. And I see, Rajan, you're on. I can see you on the screen, so it's good to have you here. So,
Can you hear me?
and we can hear you. So, Councilmember Cox will have you lead us in a pledge allegiance, and then we'll have follow up for reverence.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello?
Okay, you're good. You're good to go, Rashawn.
My hearty thanks to dear Dale Powers for scheduling me to read invocation for the great city of Cooper. I shall be reading from ancient Hindu scriptures in Sanskrit, some as old as about 1500 BCE, and then interpret in English. May all rise, please. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who is inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds. Astoma Sadgamya Tamsoma Jyotirgamya Mrityurmamratamgamya. Lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, lead us from death to immortality. Tasmada Sakta Statam Karyam Karma Samachara Sakto Hyacharan Karma Parma Panoti Purusha Karma Nevati Samsiddhi Masta Jankadya Loka Siddha Vapi Sampashankar Kumrahasi. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world, a devotion to selfless, one attain the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. Om Sahan Vabdu Sahan Punabdu Sahaviryan Karva Bhai Tejasvina Vadita Mastu Mahavidvita Bhai. May we be protected together, may we be nourished together, may we work together with great vigor, may our study be enlightening, may no obstacle arise between us. Samniva Buddhi Samna Janiva Samnamastu Manam Yathava Susahasti. United your resolve, united your hearts, may your spirits be at one, that you may long together dwell in unity and concord. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Before we begin, we may want to, or we'd like to just introduce Heather Nielsen, who's been hired here at the city. Heather, maybe we'll just have you stand, if that's all right, so everybody can see. She was hired to replace Shauna, so I think you'll have a chance to get to meet everyone as time goes on. So, thank you. Okay, before we start working down through the agenda, we'll just ask, are there any conflicts of interest that need to be disclosed by any members of the council at this time? Okay, seeing none. All right, approval of the minutes from April 15th, 2021. If you've had a chance to read and go through those, are there any corrections or amendments that need to be made, or if not, we'll just have a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 15th, 2021 meeting as written and reviewed.
I'll
Okay,
second.
we have a motion from Council Member Hill and a second from Council Member Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, at this time on the agenda, we'll have the citizens' comments that would relate to agenda items only. If any of you would like to make a comment this time, you're welcome to, I was going to say come up to the microphone, but I don't see.
Oh, no.
Welcome to come up to the microphone
We're
and
just sharing.
we'll, if you would just tell us your name and your address. And then we would like to limit these to 3 minutes.
I'll go ahead and get it over quick. Bryce Wilcox, 4152 South, 5350 West Hooper. I am a member of the Planning Commission, and let me make this clear, I am not against Ryan Fisher. He's on the agenda tonight, and of course we recommended that we do not rezone that, for multiple reasons, as you guys probably are aware of. There's no reason hashing that out. And it's more of a principle right now. It's not, who the person is, it's a principle. If we go ahead and open the floodgate, there's already people lining up. The word on the street is, and if I heard it once, it would be okay, but I've heard it 3 and 4 times. Yeah, go to the Planning Commission, they'll deny it, then take it to the City Council, and we'll get it approved. So that's the word on the street. And I would really like to see us work together as a team, but the wheels aren't greased right now. Chris, you like to come to our meetings and give us advice and tell us that we're putting the city in jeopardy. I'll tell you what, if you approve this one, the next one you approve, and then see you don't approve somebody, that's where you're going to have the jeopardy and put the city in a compromising situation. It's not a big time. I'm sure we're going to be done, within, 8-10 months. I don't know. But patience does prevail. So, and there again, I think Ryan Fisher is a great guy, and it's nothing against him. It's just the principle of the matter is what I would like to see. And I think the citizens would too as well. It looks like a war zone out by my neighborhood. It really does. And so it's a little concerning that, infrastructure and those things really need to be taken a look at. And not just look at the bottom line almighty dollar and put someone else's concerns and needs before the city. So anyway, that's what I'd like to say. Thanks for your time.
Mary Simpson, 4311 South, 5900 West in Hooper. And I'm speaking to you tonight as a concerned citizen of Hooper. I'm concerned because the 2 groups of people that were either appointed or elected to represent the citizens of Hooper don't seem to be working together. They seem to be at odds with each other, and this will not result in anything good for our community at large. The City Council approved a resolution that was originated in the Planning Commission. This resolution was put in place to help control the exploding requests for rezones that has happened in the previous 12 to 18 months. There were many acres of land throughout the city that had been rezoned to higher density, and then the developers just stopped progress, or they found that after rushing to get the rezone, that there were so many other obstacles that they gave up and sold the land to another developer. I'm not here to tell you the details of the obstacles, like lifting sewage, widening roads, sufficient water supply, or drainage without flooding adjacent properties. What I am here for is to ask that the council be supportive of the Planning Commission and the resolution. The commission hears the public comments regarding new developments, and the overwhelming response is to keep Hooper to 1-acre lots. The request before you tonight as item number 2 on the agenda was declined by the Planning Commission because the Commission wanted to comply with the spirit of the resolution, which is to hold off any new rezone requests until the new general plan for our city with new maps for future land use can be completed. I'm asking tonight that the City Council strongly consider supporting the Planning Commission in their decision. If not, then I ask you, what good is a Planning Commission for our city if the council doesn't take their decision seriously and support it? Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Natalie Zewik, 5067 South, 5300 West. I want to echo everything that the two previous to me just said. You brought up a good point that I hadn't thought about. I attended the last commission meeting, and where the number 2 on the agenda was not recommended. And I would love to see the council and the commission both work together. It seems like, we're getting more and more people here. I'm hoping that social media is now working, trying to get people here. The majority of people don't want this, and it just feels like everybody, I won't say everybody, but the council is consistently voting against what the people want. And I don't know if you're listening to us or not, but it feels like you're not listening to us at all. So I would ask that you please take into consideration what the commission, our commission, is recommending when you vote on this. Thank you.
Hello there. Hi, Scott Nye, 6181 West, 4700 South Flipper. I second what the two ladies in front of me just said. And we've been to all the meetings and stuff, and we were told that everything was going to be put on hold until the master plan got finished and everything. And you've heard me up here before, and so I'm still pushing for 1 acre lots, and Hooper's a great place to live, and we've got great people out here, and like I say, I second everything that's been said about it.
Okay, are there any other citizens' comments?
Amanda Prince, 6093 West, 5300 South. First off, I want to express my gratitude to the members of the City Council. I know it is not easy to be sitting in your seats. I know you take a lot of heat publicly here, on social media, and it's easy to get up and criticize when you don't have to be behind there. And I hope you know that there are people that do appreciate everything that you do, and I believe that for the most part, most of you really do try and make the best decisions for Hooper. I think it's important, a lot of people have talked about the resolution, and just one of the statements in there, if you don't mind, I'll read it. Whereas the current general plan policy provides for an annual review of the general plan by the Planning and Zoning Commission and a comprehensive review every 5 years during a static point in time to ensure that the goals and policies of the plan are realistic, attainable, and consistent with the wishes of the community. Right now we're in the process of trying to find out what those wishes are. We've sent out 2 surveys. I think it's important to note that in survey number 1, 79.86% of the community agreed or strongly agreed that Hooper should encourage single-family homes on larger lots. Larger lots is subjective. We wonder, what does that mean? So in the second survey that came out, that question was asked, and the majority, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that, it was just barely sent out yesterday, I believe, from Wasatch Front Regional Council, but if you look at that, the majority of people are in favor of 1 acre lots. And I realize that just because the majority is, that doesn't mean everybody. But I think it's important that if we're trying to take into consideration the things that the community wants, those things need to be considered. The other thing that I think is worth noting is that we are in the process of trying to not only look at the capacity of our infrastructure, but the sustainability of it. There are certain fees, there's maintenance on the sewer, there's things that need to be taken care of. Who's going to pay for that? The more where we put on that, the more things are going to need to be maintained and fixed, and that requires money, and that cost has to be absorbed somewhere. The impact fees that we charge to these developers are not, they're not covering maintenance. I just think it's really important that we try to be united and that we try to have communication between the planning commission and the city council, and that we really try to listen to what the citizens are saying, the feedback that we're getting in this survey. I think it's important. Thank you.
Sheldon Breeder, 5638 South, 6800 West. Everybody's already said anything that I would have to say on the Ryan Fisher. You guys know my feelings on that. So I was just wondering about number 6 on here. I've never seen something like this on a city council meeting before, so I was just wondering, is that a standard practice that would be happening at the city council meeting at this stage? So I'd like some feedback on that.
Okay, that is a result of, if there's 2 council members that would like something placed on the agenda, then we have to place it on the agenda. And so that's where that came from.
So that's going outside of the standard procedure.
Well, it's standard as far as what normally happens, but it is procedure that if there's 2 council members that would like something placed on the agenda and they both agree, then we place it on the agenda.
But outside of what would normally happen in these situations.
No.
Chris,
No.
Chris, do you want to explain?
So there's a soccer group that approached, it's not actually on the agenda item, and I'm not picking on Tracy, she's having hands full, but there's a soccer group that approached that actually wants to present a soccer complex opportunity in the town.
Yeah, I'm aware of the.
And Brad and Lewis are in talks with them with some property they have. They approached the city, I think they did a temporary meeting, or
We had a concept
meeting.
Right.
And then they asked me if the council would be interested in seeing what that development might look like with soccer fields. We recently went over our ordinances in the past. This is the Hooper City Council, right? And so as council members, we have the right to be able to get on the agenda if there's two of us concurring, whatever we deem would be reasonable to talk about. We would allow anyone that approaches us, and that's been my argument over and over again. If there's someone in the community that wants to come address the city council and they have a reason to do so, and 2 council people sign off on that, I will entertain you all day long because I would love to hear what you have to say. Most of the time, right, y'all get a moment in this moment to talk to us, and it's a pretty short moment. We're probably past the 3 minutes now, but I think if there's a presentation that benefits the city as a whole, or could, or that affects the city as a whole, then I would encourage everyone that can hear this, reach out to the city council, ask to be on the agenda, come talk to us.
All right, fair enough, thanks.
And just because something's on the agenda doesn't mean that it's going to be approved. Yeah.
Let me make a comment on that. The process for development is set out by ordinance. And in order for this project or any project to be approved, you have to go through that process of going through the planning commission and then here. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't present ideas, but this council can't act on those ideas at this point because it hasn't come to them in the right way.
But we could give feedback saying, yeah, take that up to the planning commission and see what they have to say. Looks like it might benefit our town. Or, you guys are crazy, no chance, right?
Hi, Laurie Justinson, 6911 West, 5900 South in Hooper, also known as Sophie's Well, for any of you who might be from Hooper. You would recognize that name. I know that I've talked, and this is the same thing, I go over it because I drove don't really understand all the zoning knowledge, but what I do understand, and I don't know if it's something that's kept undercover, we don't talk about, where is the water coming from to supply this? Now, my well, that 5 years ago ran 5 gallons in 33 seconds, is now a trickle. So what has happened to that aquifer? I think that we are supplying too many homes and we don't have enough water. I know that we also own irrigation shares, and I know that has really nothing to do with this, but then again, it has everything to do with it. This is our ground, it needs to be taken care of. The houses that are coming in, there's more and more homes. So 21 years ago, when we built our home, and they said, no more, because there's not enough water. Where did we find enough water for all these homes? I would like to see some kind of a written report, and I know, when I talk to people, they say, you gotta go talk to Hooper Water. And I said, no, I don't. Hooper Water's not the ones giving out the permits. It's the council that is doing the zoning, in Hooper, City. It's them that are allowing the homes, but when you allow these building permits, are you also saying, okay, this is how much water you're going to use per year? Where, can you tell me, anyone tell me, where is the water coming from that wasn't here 21 years ago, and that I can say as a fact is no longer in that aquifer?
So,
Anybody?
Tracy, you or me, or I?
So Hooper Water are the people that master plan the water
But
system.
yes,
But,
I'm sorry.
and we do not approve a subdivision that they do not approve first. Okay, they have to say they will serve it and that they have adequate supply. Every time I have opened my mouth in this meeting for the last 20 years and spoken on behalf of Hooper Water, they have heard about it and come back and say, you do not have a right to speak on our behalf. So I really can't say a lot about it, except that our ordinance requires us to go to them, which we do, and they have to tell us, yes, we will serve it, no, we won't. If we will serve it, this is what we require that developer to do to get water to
And
it.
they can't break ground to start their development through the city until that will serve letter comes from both the irrigation company and the water company. So our ordinances won't allow that. We don't approve any building until those things come back through our planning commission, right? The planning commission vets that out and it comes to us. The council doesn't approve any of that until that happens.
Okay, well, it's still a question that should be on everyone's mind.
I think it's a
Whether
great
Hooper
question,
City,
but
where do they buy the water? And how can they prove?
they have meetings, you should go.
And they're also very much aware of our general plan and our zoning, because they have to use that for their long-term projections. And if it changes, they will change their projections. But that's how they master plan.
Yeah, we're a pretty unique community in the sense that we have no control over some of our providers. We don't control water, we don't control irrigation. It's done by a separate corporation. So I get the concern though, for sure.
Okay, so my name's Cassandra Jones. I live on 5500 South, 6538 West. I'm just kind of seconding what she's saying because me and my husband, we own a water share and our ditch is full. And we don't even live in the brand new subdivisions where all these houses are going up, which maybe I'm kind of you need to put that on the next agenda to talk about because I feel like that's more of a Hooper problem than a water problem with the houses that are on my road. I don't know. Does that make sense? So we have a share that we can't use.
You have a water share you can't use?
Yeah, our ditch is full.
Yeah, that's above my pay grade. I don't get irrigations.
And kind of like they told us in the beginning that we could get on the list, but we've been in my house for 5 years now and nothing. So.
Okay, so your concern is your water's in the ditch, but you can't get it out of the ditch to flood irrigate with?
Oh no, we just have a share and we try to hook up to our share. And the people that lived in our house before, they could, but we can't. They're like, your ditch is full. There's too many people watering on your ditch.
Do you have secondary water?
We don't have secondary, and that sucks. So you can see why we're frustrated.
I will explain a little on that. When a ditch is full, all the ditches are full of water.
Yeah.
So the way the only way they can control that is with time. In order to let someone use water, they've got to take some time away from someone else and give that time to, anyway, so,
Maybe they just don't like it.
but, no, I don't think that's the case. I think they like that.
You should be assigned a time
Yeah, you should.
to take the water. You should be assigned a time.
This is what?
You should.
You should be assigned a time.
Okay, you know, we tried to get assigned a time, but they said too many people on this ditch is full. Like, not full, it's full of water, obviously.
Yeah.
Full of people, too many people.
Okay.
You pay your water share bill once a year, don't you? You pay for that share, then you should absolutely have a water time.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, are there any other citizens' comments?
Can I just add one thing that I forgot to mention? Sorry, I didn't bring something in talking today, but I wanted to point out, I know when this resolution was passed, and I've gone back and I've looked at the minutes and everything, there was some concern, and I think it's been a little bit miscommunicated that this resolution means there's a halt to all rezones, and that's not the case. It says that we would carefully consider them. But if you go back and you listen to the meetings, several of the council mentioned, you know, if it's like a 2-acre lot or something like that, those are things that we would consider. But once you get into these larger lots, I think that's more of a pull on our resources and on the things that we're trying to figure out right now. So I'm hoping that you guys will uphold the spirit of what that resolution was supposed to accomplish, and that you will help us pause so that we can make good decisions during this time. Sorry, thank you.
Are there any other comments? Okay,
We have some that need to be read into the
oh,
comment.
okay, yes, okay.
All right, this is from Deborah, I'm gonna slaughter her name. Perfect, Marigoni. Dear Mayor and council members, we've noticed once again numerous requests for rezoning in our community. This has us very concerned. Not only has our traffic increased exponentially, but with the droughts plaguing Utah, we were fearful of increased water services. Our small community cannot handle the constant influx of new houses and population increase. There is a limit on what we can handle. As far as we are aware, in order to provide services and safety, our roads and utilities are in need of immediate upgrades. Our road, 5100 West, is barely able to handle the traffic that we now have. The interchange at 5100 West and 5500 South will be in need of a stoplight soon. There is increased crime, crowded roads, and school. Is this really the community we desire? We can't understand why increasing lot sizes would be detrimental for our citizens. The only ones fighting that are those who will benefit financially, the subdividers. We deserve better than to turn into another West Haven, Clinton, or Syracuse. The impact to current residents must be considered. Yes, growth is certain, but keep it a country filled with larger lots. If any individual is unable to handle a country-sized lot, we have no idea why they would choose to live in Hooper. Thank you.
Heather, I think this needs to be read into on this area.
Okay, this one's from Lori McLaughlin, right? Okay, city council members, just in case we're not able to attend the meeting tonight, I wanted to make sure my voice is heard as a member of this community. My husband and I purchased a home here last August in Hooper on 1 acre. We moved out of the city in Holiday, which was at one time nice and quiet. Over the years in Holiday, because of the redevelopment and rezoning, it has become a daybreak type of city. More traffic, higher taxes, lack of resources for the infrastructure needed to support the growth, gangs, increase in crime and homeless camps, and increased pollution. All of those were taken into consideration
Hooper to purchase our retirement home and live quietly in the country. We're surrounded by farmland, cows, horses, goats, turkey, mules, and chickens. We absolutely love it here, exactly the way it is. My husband retired from the South Salt Lake Police Department with over 20 years of service, and our homestead is our sanctuary away from the city. We want to keep it that way. We are opposed to any rezoning that increases the population here. I don't want to see Hooper turn into a city living, as that's exactly why we moved, to get away from it all. I love the smell of the alfalfa fields when cut. I love hearing all of the livestock even in the middle of the night. I love the lack of traffic lights and traffic. I love the quietness and peace Hooper brings into our daily lives. I love seeing posts in Facebook groups about someone's goat, horse, or pig that got out, instead of the daily crime posts we saw when living in Holiday. Please take all these things into consideration while voting on any future rezoning. Thank you for your time in supporting the views of the people you represent and voted you into office.
Okay. Thank you. By the way, Heather, you did a really good job. Okay, next, if there's no other citizens' comments, we'll move on with the agenda for a request for rezone from R1 to R2, and Tracy will just give us a presentation on that.
Let me share my screen here and get a presentation opened up. Well, I don't think there's any mystery as to what this first item is after the comments that we've heard, and I can hardly wait till see what my Darth Vader voice shows up on that text over there. So, just, if I say something that may not be what I'm actually saying over on that thing. But so this is a rezone request for Ryan Fisher. It's a property at about 5,000 south, just west of 6,300 west. I've highlighted the area there in red. It's 8.39 acres. Mr. Fisher has requested R1 to R2 in a zoning change. So here you can see the area right there. Mostly rectangular area with a home up near the front of the property. So 6,300 west and about 5,000 south. Okay, so this is our current generalized future land use map, and I've highlighted there with a little arrow right where this property fits. It's right on the outer edge of the area that was designated for medium density residential, and so as such it qualifies for a request. And we'll zoom in here in just a minute, look at it a little closer. Zoning, again, right, I pointed to that property here. You can see how where it is relative to the other things in the area. Just zoom in again. On the left end would be the zoomed in version of the land use map. Again, out on the fringe, the area in that orangey brown color is the medium density, and then yellow is low density in our land use, and then those striped green are just agricultural protection overlay areas that have been requested over the years. On the right then is the zoning map, current zoning. All the light yellow is currently zoned R1, and the tan are the areas that have been that are zoned R2 at this point in time. I was not able to be at the planning commission. I was out of state that night, so I don't know all the comments that were made at that meeting. But the planning commission, as you've heard, did recommend denial of this rezone request at that meeting. Recommended to the council. So, yeah. Any questions for me? That's really all I have on this tonight. So,
question that I have, Tracy, is we talk a lot about infrastructure, and I'm sure we'll talk more about infrastructure tonight. And people are in city are rightfully concerned about infrastructure because that's important for our future. This is a question I've asked multiple times in the last couple of years. It comes up, we have a problem with streets, we have a problem with our sewer, we have a problem with all these things. I feel like somewhere there's someone shaking a stick, creating fear in our citizens' minds that we're doing something that's not appropriate. And yet when I've asked you, who is our expert, right, and I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot, do you see an infrastructure problem with how the sewer currently sits and the street system with this parcel of property if they were to put 10 homes in that area? Is there a street problem? Is there a overall problem?
I don't know that I can speak specifically to streets right now. We're in the process of looking at all the streets in a transportation master plan. I'm fairly confident that we're going to look at a 25-year period. I'm real confident that right now there isn't a single street in Hooper that wouldn't be classified as a level A service, A being the best and F being the worst. It just isn't there. Now we'll see what the projections are after we apply some of this over time. So I can't really speak to that. I can speak to the sewer. We do not have a capacity issue in our vacuum sewer system. It is just not there. We plan for in each of these 3 vacuum zones for over 1,200 connections. Right now there are 500 in each or so. Yeah, outside of the vacuum area, there are other areas where we've also planned for not vacuum, but for regional sewer lift stations to handle 500 homes each. We have a developer building one right now up on the Rawson property. We have another developer that's planning to build one down on Beth Christensen's property to handle that whole area. We have another one that's talking to us about one that's on the property south of Sinclair. Do I really want all that to happen? No. But we are in the process of making sure that the sewer capacity is there by forcing these things to be built. But the vacuum sewer was planned for a lot more lots than we have right now. So,
Thanks, Tristan.
Haven't we discussed though that it's about time for a revamp and a redo on that sewer?
We're time to start to upgrade our pump, to replace our pumps in some of the stations. But that's a $15,000 thing as opposed to the multi-million-dollar project that we use to put the sewer in.
I think, Lisa, when we talked in the budget meeting last, if I understood correctly, is that the fees that we're charging, impact fees we're charging for the sewer right now, once again, for everyone out here, I've heard the same thing. Our sewer's in bad shape. We don't have the money to fix our sewer. We don't have the money to maintain our sewer. I just sat through a budget meeting a week ago, I think, and asked that question. We have money for our sewer. We have money to maintain our sewer. Our impact fees are covering the sewer. We're not going broke with our sewer. So I just want to reaffirm to the citizens that when it comes to the sewer, if you have a problem with the sewer, I'm not saying there's not hiccups, but as far as the overall function, I want to just reiterate what Tracy said. I can't find anything that's saying the sewer's bad.
So impact fees cannot be used for maintenance. Okay, impact fees are used for new development to buy capacity in the existing system. And so we have an existing system that has capacity. They have to buy that with the impact fee. We use that money mostly to pay the debt service that we've been paying for 10 years. And by the way, we got a 0 interest loan, from the state of Utah when we put this in, but we still have to pay that back over 30 years. Maintenance has to come out of user fees. And I don't follow the budget. I do pay. I live on the next street over. If that's not sufficient, then you need to do a rate study and determine if they need to be raised. But that has to come out of the individual user fees.
But new homes aren't affecting the decline in the system. They're paying for it through impact fees.
They're helping to pay the debt service. So.
But I don't think capacity is the only issue. I think, obviously, maintenance is increasing, and obviously we're going to have some expensive upgrades. So I think when you say we have the capacity, that is not the only issue. There are other issues related to the sewer.
Well, I've said many times, and I don't know how often I've said it at this open meeting, but we talked to Public Works. There has to be some method of collecting money that is set aside for replacement. That's just a fact of life. You know, your car doesn't run forever, your furnace doesn't run forever, and the only place that can come from is off of the people's backs, honestly. You know, so and I don't know whether that's happening or not. So
That is happening.
Yeah, I think, appreciate that, Tracy and Councilman Paulson, but again, we want to make sure, we always know it has the capacity. I don't think that's ever been the question. So we just need to make sure it's sustainable, that it can, as we go through time. Unfortunately, where we live, you know, anytime you're running pumps, we don't have a gravity feed system, so.
that would have been impossible here.
That would have been impossible, right, so. that's- Okay, so, do we have someone here to represent this, application for a rezone, Ryan Fisher?
Okay. Ryan Fisher, 5261 South, 6250 West.
Okay.
You want me to start then?
Sure, you just kind of explain what your plans are, and then we'll probably have some questions.
So I'm the villain in the room tonight. As I said, I mentioned this in the planning commission meeting, but I've lived here almost 30 years. My wife was born and raised here. Her family is original. I mean, they've been here, I don't know how long, but over 100 years. So, in fact, the person that we bought this land from was my wife's bus driver all through elementary school. So, we purchased this land as an opportunity to build a house on a different piece of land, and then wanted to see if we could rezone it along the way. That was the purpose of this. This isn't something where we're going to come in, throw up homes, and get out of town. Okay, we want to we've raised our family here. We want to continue to be here. We love Hooper as much as the passionate people that you've heard from tonight. I think maybe we just have a little different view of how that's going to progress, I think. But the reason I'm here tonight is I kind of feel like at the planning commission the decision had already been made before I ever said a word, and that may be not correct, but that's kind of how I felt. And I know that I have the opportunity to bring it before the city council and present it. So I think one of the things that I want to mention is that, and by the way, I should say too that I understand the comments that have been said here tonight. I've lived here a long time, but I think nobody likes to see their field put into homes. I've seen it happen. I've lived a couple of places in Hooper. I've lived on a half acre. I've lived on an acre. I understand, I think, kind of the passion that people here in Hooper have. Also, though, I think, as Tracy Allen showed us on this medium density zoning, that I'm not requesting something that hasn't been planned for many years. Okay, this was approved in 2014. It's supposed to be. At some point, we knew that half acres would be there. That's why it was zoned that way. And I think if you look at the past planning of mayors and city council and planning commission members for many years, they knew that the day that we're seeing today with this kind of exponential growth would come. And there's a reason that they took part of Hooper that doesn't have infrastructure to support medium density or high density, and they protected that. And that's what West Hooper is. And if you go and look at that, unless something changes, that will never be high density or medium density. We have that protection there, and I think we have to consider that the people that have been planning Hooper City, not just you good people and the planning commission, but the people that have been doing doing this for many years, the 30 years that I've lived here, that they've had the best interests of Hooper in mind and that they've planned those things. Okay? And I think it's a little bit of a slap in the face to them if we all of a sudden come along and say, we're going to try to reverse and go backwards with what we've been planning for many years. And so, another point I want to make is that literally 18 months ago, and I don't know if it was, I don't know the details of how it was approved, but the property that is literally to the south of me that I share a property line with was approved for the half-acre lots just 18 months ago. And so I don't think it's an unreasonable request. If that person ever wanted to develop, it would not make any sense to me to share a property line with someone who's approved for a half-acre and that this would not be approved. I had a concept meeting with the mayor, with the engineer, with department heads from sewer and secondary and so forth, and I asked specifically the question if the infrastructure was there, and I was assured that there were no issues with power or water or sewer or anything else, that it was all designed for that medium density many years ago. So again, that's kind of the point that I'm coming from. I think that when you're looking at this, in the resolution, it doesn't state no rezones can happen. It says limited. But from what I'm seeing, it's limited means one lot, and that's it. And to me, also, it says that the master plan will be done in a timely manner. And I was told in my concept meeting that that could be as late summer of 2022, which would end up being almost 2 years that this master plan has been open. And to me, I don't know how anyone could argue that that's a reasonable time frame or considered a timely manner. So again, that's why I'm here. I don't want to wait another year and a half to go through that process at that point. So one more thing I should mention is that I was required to purchase the water shares, and I have more than adequate water shares for the rezone for the property, and there shouldn't be any issues with that, as well as the other infrastructure. So that's kind of my point. My request is that rather than just blanket veto a rezone, that we consider what it is, where it is, why the request is being made, and actually consider if it makes sense a rezone.
Does council have any questions for Ryan? Okay. Guess no one has any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll bring this back to the council now and for discussion
So,
on this rezone.
if I could just take a second, definitely no, I'm not the popular one in the room, but that's okay. So, sometimes I feel like I'm a little misunderstood on where I stand with development in the city. And so, I took several hours to try to put together my thoughts for this discussion today so that I come off maybe a little more articulate and less emotional. And so I went back and I listened to as Amanda, Commissioner Prince, did. I listened to past tapes. I tried to get a perspective of where we as a council were at, both through the planning commission meetings that were held back in last September, October, November. I listened to the discussion that went on during those meetings. I reviewed text messages that I had from different individuals, and I tried to formulate articulate thought on where we're at today. I was able to attend the planning commission meeting, and by all means, our commissioners are in a sticky situation. They got a lot on their plate. I agree with a lot of stuff. Sometimes I don't agree, and I think that's what makes our country and our community great, is that we can disagree and still move forward. The resolution that we talked about has come up multiple times. We passed a resolution, the mayor signed it Mr. Fisher stated, that talks about May limit in time. I went back and read an email that Commissioner Prince had sent out in regards to gathering information from both the commissioners and from the council members to draft this resolution. And in the email, it specifically asked for the best interest in the community of the public's health, safety, and welfare while we conduct this comprehensive review. Health, safety, and welfare.
Excuse me. I just got a text. It says you need to speak in the microphone.
Okay.
And it was somebody not even in this room, so.
Sorry.
Now just get close.
Okay, close. Didn't sound like it. Can you hear me now? I went back and read some state code as well that came up in discussion with this as we were passing this resolution. And there's two different code subsections that we had reviewed and discussed while we were looking at this resolution and trying to maintain our concurrence and accordance with the state law as well as our own ordinances. If those of you that want to look it up, it's in section 504, chapter 9A, section 504. And in this area of code, it talks about temporary land use regulations. And I don't want to read the whole thing, but it talks about the legislative body can make a finding of compelling countervailance of public interest. And due to that, we as a elected body can say, there's an issue, we need to stop whatever, right? So, we don't have water, which is not our control, but let's say that, Hooker Water came to us and said we can't serve the water anymore, then that's a compelling interest. We got to slow some things down, we got to stop some things. This ordinance goes on to, or this code goes on to say that we have the ability to, for 6 months, put into effect a stoppage of all development for 6 months. We didn't do that because we knew that this process would be longer than 6 months. So we didn't put in a stoppage of growth. We said we want to slow growth. We want to limit it. We want to do it wisely. So then we referred over to, in that same Title 10, 509A, Title 10, Chapter 9A, 509, Section 509. We actually, I believe, going back and listening to things, kind of went with this method. And in this method, it says basically, once again, if there's eminent problems with infrastructure, we want to be able to slow things down so we can take a look at it. In this same code, the timeline given us as an elected body is 180 days to do that. Right now we're at 7 months, which if my calculations are close, it's 210 days. So I brought up in the Planning Commission meeting that we can't blanket not approved places because we're trying to stop growth. And I was told, no, we've approved stuff. So I went back through the last 8 months of agendas, and I have them here for anyone that'd like to review them. Of all the agenda items that came before the City Council in the last, since we've been talking about this process, we've approved 2 zoning changes, both of which were presented in the September Planning Commission meeting. That was stated at that September Planning Commission meeting that they would not be held accountable to the new ordinances being put in place. Those are the only 2 that we as a body have seen or approved, based on the word given by our Planning Commission at that meeting. So the Planning Commission told me last time that we approved others. I don't see them, and I haven't approved them. So that tells me that for 7 months, we've stopped growth in this town. It's great. But we can't stop it indefinitely, folks. It's not in compliance with state code. It's against the law. So the concern is this. What if we open the door for one developer? So first of all, I wouldn't deem Mr. Fisher as a developer. I'd deem him as a Hooper citizen that bought some property. He's a landowner. Just like everyone else in this room is a landowner. Landowners have rights, and they should have rights. And if they follow the ordinances and laws given to them by their community and by the state, they should have the rights to do what they deem necessary to do with their property. We shouldn't infringe upon those rights. If we, as a community, change our ordinance, and we change that process, and that no longer is a half-acre overlay, then they don't have the right. Currently, Mr. Fisher has the right. Just like everyone else before him since 2014 has had the right. So my question to the council is, I'm sure there's going to be comment, but is if someone can tell me what is eminent versus infrastructure, fire, water, sewer, or any of those other things, I'm on board to say not a chance. But someone's got to show me a reason why not. Otherwise, I think legally it's a done deal.
I can argue a few of the points that you made. Number one, we have not stopped growth. If you think we've stopped growth, drive over by my house. We made the resolution, and if I'm incorrect, you supported the resolution.
Yes.
And at that time, we went over House Bill this, we went over the legalities of it. So the general plan update is now in process. I guess since I'm the aged individual on here, that's not that long to wait until we, the general plan, the review is complete. Our general plan even says we can do this in a static state. This doesn't mean the rest of Hooper is static. The only thing that was static was the rezones. Many subdivisions are ongoing. So to say we've stopped growth, that's incorrect. There's just a pause in new rezones. It had the overwhelming support of the citizens of Hooper. It had the overwhelming support of the City Council and the Planning Commission. And we heard all those concerns before it was adopted. And I believe that's why we adopted it, so that we would have time to think about and consider what's going to happen in the future. We made a commitment, and I think we need to adhere to that.
So, one more thing I wanted to add. Statistically, I've heard tonight, and I know we're getting surveys back, and I appreciate the surveys. A couple months back, maybe even 6 months ago, I asked Shauna and Tracy for some data in regards to Hooper City. And so, I'm not sure how they got it, but they waved the wand and they came up with some pretty good data for me. At least I think it is. At the time they ran this report for me, there was approximately 2,600 homes in Hooper. 2,600. Out of those 2,600, you may be curious how many of those are on 1 acre plus. Because based on the statistical data that we hear, it's got to be 75% of them. Or more, right? Because you don't hear from everyone. Currently, based on that report that was given to me, there's 960 homes on 1 acre plus out of the 2,600. Approximately 1,700 homes, 16 whatever, some change, are on less than 1 acre.
Is that 1 full acre or what we consider R1?
It's 40,000 square feet less, 40,000 square feet more. So, a builder's acre, right? So, when we're saying that the town of Hooper doesn't want, I get it, and I know, once again, you know what? They're probably not, one of you want to go out and have a Coke with me after the meeting, and that's okay. Because I represent you all, and I represent the other 8,500 people plus in our community.
Yeah, why did they not respond?
I don't like order.
Continue.
What's that?
I say, okay, continue, so.
So that's just a statistic that I think we need to understand is that our citizens aren't all living on an acre plus. And so when I hear they want a bigger lot, I concur. If I lived on a smaller lot, maybe I want a bigger lot. I don't know what that means. And I know we're trying to get that data. And I think that, we're trying to glean that out. No one has ever said in the history of time that I know of, I want neighbors in my backyard. I've never heard one person come to our meeting and say, I'm excited about that new development, because it's an emotional decision. But to me, our groups shouldn't be emotional, although I'm emotional, and I'm sorry, because I'm a pot calling the kettle black. We should base our decisions based off factual items, and that's whether or not the city can handle what's going on, and whether or not we're following our ordinances and the state code.
So as we open this general plan, that's one of the reasons that it should be done every 5 years and updated every year, which it hadn't been. So I understand what you're saying, but I think what the city as a whole, I believe what we're looking at is we're trying to collect that information so we know where we are. It's easy to say there's plenty of water until the well goes dry. We don't want to be in a position where, well, if we had only done that a year ago or 2 years ago. I mean, I would hope that we could be forward-thinking enough that we are looking out for 20 years. I don't think 20 years ago there was ever a thought that there would be the population explosion along the Wasatch Front that we've had today. In fact, I would go back just as recent as 2008. I thought things were kind of going away. I mean, we kind of went through a crisis, but never would I have ever guessed that there was going to be this much pressure. And as we've talked about this right from the beginning, it felt like it was timely to look at our general plan to make sure that all our infrastructure is on course to sustain. And I use that word more all the time because it makes a lot of sense to me, the sustainability of something. I mean, is it going to be as good today, or it'll be as good in 20 years down the road as it is today? If things are sustainable, in fact, sometimes they even get better. But the only way we can ever know that is if we just take the time to look at it, look at where we are, where our resources are. I mean, water, this year, water ought to be a resource that we look at and say, maybe we really don't have an endless supply of water here. But we've had the worst drought we've had on record. Great Salt Lake's at an all-time low as far as its elevation in water. Who would have ever thought that at one time we were trying to pump water out of the Great Salt Lake so it wouldn't flood areas in Hooper, in fact. So things change, and I think that's where the real responsibility comes on us as a council and a planning commission, is to see if we can be forward-thinking enough to be ahead of the game all the time, not trying to catch up. We'll never catch. If we get too far behind, we'll never catch up. And sometimes I think that's easy. That's an easy thing to let have happen. We can get behind, and we never get to where we could have been. Our vision's not even as clear. I don't think we make as good of decisions when we're behind as if we're ahead. And I think that was the whole purpose of this resolution in the first place. I think it was made clear, visiting with our legal counsel, making sure that everything was in place so that this information would be out there, so that when a developer came into the city, they knew before they ever came in to apply for a rezone that there's a resolution in place. And it wasn't just something that was taken haphazardly. I mean, it was a well thought out a well thought out plan to try to keep the residents of Hooper keeping Hooper the very best place they can live. Taking care of our residents of Hooper. And that means the ones that are going to live here in the future too. Sometimes we think it's just the ones that live here now, but I think we have a responsibility to take care of those that will eventually live here too. So,
Mayor, could I just clarify something about our transportation master planning that I probably should have explained better? I just wanted the council to know we are working with the Wasatch Front Regional Council team that is doing the general plan, so we can get 5, 10, 15, 20-year projections. And so we don't have to wait for to see, 20 years is going to be this. We will know kind of how to project our roadway infrastructure in these 5-year increments. So I just wanted you to know, we're not going to say, 25 years from now it's going to look like. We're going to know, hopefully know what 5, 10, and 15 years look like, so you can have that tool to help you make some decisions as well. But I just wanted to clarify that. So.
Hey, Reed. Councilor Reed. I have a question. Could you tell me the difference between a moratorium and just not approving anything?
Well, the moratorium provision was to stop all development, and you certainly haven't done that. And your resolution doesn't stop development either. All it says is these are factors to consider in deciding whether you want to go ahead or not. You have as a council, and you made that very clear, I think all of you made that very clear when you passed it, that you have the ability to approve this if you feel like it's not going to affect the many factors that were outlined in the resolution. And I think you've already decided in some cases that small subdivisions probably wouldn't have that effect. You covered, I don't remember the past ones, but it seems to me like they were very small subdivisions, and the decision was 2 or 3 houses probably isn't going to make a difference. This is certainly not a 60-house subdivision or an 80-house subdivision. It's not a 1-house subdivision, so it's kind of in the middle. So I think it's up to the council to decide what you think you ought to do based on the factors raised in the resolution and how you feel that's going to affect the ability to move ahead. I think the other thing is a time issue. As you've stated, I don't think any of you expect that this moratorium, or it's really not a moratorium, but this ability to turn down rezones is going to last for 5 years or 4 years or 3 years. So you're really not talking today, I don't think, about whether ultimately this piece of property ought to be rezoned. You're talking about whether it should be rezoned today. If they come in later on, when you're further down the road, if they came in clearly after the time of the approval of the new general plan, the argument would be totally different. And at that point, if the property is located in an area that you've as a council in the past designated as medium density property, and they've met all the criteria, you really have no opportunity to deny it. You have to approve it. Here you're saying if you do deny it, that this is going to affect those many factors that you put in the resolution, and therefore right now you're not going to approve it, but he's welcome to come back later and try it again.
So I have one more question. With the 8 acres that we have on the board, if you develop it right now, he would not have to rezone it. He could, technically, we are allowing building, so we're allowing building permits, we're allowing things to go forward based on what was just said. So with 8 acres, I'm not a builder, but I'm assuming that if you wanted to cut a road into that 8 acres, you'd probably lose 2 acres, you'd probably put 6 houses, maybe 5 houses on an 8-acre parcel.
Yeah, typically on the larger pieces, they get about 85%
so,
of the lots.
So when I look at this
is smaller and it'd be harder to fit very much.
Very much.
Yes.
When I look at it, I think, okay, we cut a road, we build 6 houses, 5 houses. We still got to cut a road. We're going to put curb and gutter. We're going to put 5 houses. If it's a half-acre lot, we're going to shrink that frontage by 150 to 100 foot. Everyone's putting up their vinyl fence. No one sees what's in the yard anyway. There's no open space, whether it's a half-acre or an acre. And we're adding 10 houses. I just don't see the draw on the infrastructure demand from 5 houses to 10 houses that's stopping us from moving forward. And that's my final 2 cents.
So, my 2 cents. I've read this resolution backwards and forwards over and over again for the last 2 weeks and tried to come to an understanding what applies, what doesn't apply, what was our purpose with this resolution. And I agree with Chris, there is a law that we have to follow, a state law. We did pass a resolution as a planning commission and as a city council. We all agreed to this resolution. There's 18 paragraphs in this resolution. Some I agree with, some I don't necessarily agree with, but the ones I keep coming back to are, one of them that Ryan Fisher mentioned, is that the council and the commission desire to work towards completion of the amendments to the general plan in a timely manner. So what is defined as a timely manner? Last time we did a general plan, 2014, I was on the planning commission, and a timely manner back then was a year. So yes, we have outside help this time from the Wasatch Front Regional Council, and now we're talking 2 years to complete a general plan. Is that because we have outside help that they're recommending it take that long now? Or is it just because we're just dragging it out? You know what I mean?
I'm not sure where that 2 years
I don't think
came
it's 2
from.
years either.
They just mentioned that. Somebody on the planning commission just mentioned that tonight.
We asked before, and you said next August, July, August.
No. What we said is probably the summer of 2022.
June 22 is what
June.
I have.
So that's 2 years, right?
Well,
2 years. Pretty
now
close.
my math is not 2 years, but
Well,
A year and 10 months.
round up.
2 years.
Semantics.
Anyway,
But it could be faster.
like,
I mean,
could be.
Information
slower.
might come in
So-
faster than
Could be slower.
we.
what information are we getting and how fast is that coming in? I mean, as a city councilman, I haven't heard anything with the general plan, right? All I keep hearing about in these meetings is land use, land use, land use. We're going to go to 1 acre, 1 acre, 1 acre. That's all I keep hearing about in our progress of the general plan. And there's so many other facets of the general plan. It's just not even funny. And all I keep hearing about is land use. Well, that's great, but
Well,
the survey is available online, and that covered a lot of things. I didn't. I say the minority of that report was on land use. It was on many other things, and just no. The last time we did the general plan, I was also involved. We weren't involved in a world pandemic either, and obviously that has slowed things down because we have not been able to have in-person meetings. So I think you have to consider all of the circumstances, not just
so
time.
where do you feel we're at with the general plan? What's our progress at right now?
Well, we'd have to work with the commission
You know,
on that.
I would, the
But it
head
did
of
help.
it is
I was
in the
gonna say, Cindy,
audience.
it did help a lot, because when we went over that general plan before, we had open houses here, we had people coming in all the time. That was much easier. That was a much easier way to collect information and to talk to people than we've had this last year. It has been more difficult, and that has nothing to do with how efficient we tried to be as a city.
Right.
That was just our circumstances. But no, I think we're moving. I mean, based on what the planning commission's sharing, I think we're moving forward with, with these surveys is one thing. As Tracy mentioned, we've got a road study. So I think there's.
So the data's coming in. You
It
feel-
is.
data's
Okay.
coming in.
Okay, that's great.
You just don't want to rush just because we might miss a deadline on it. I don't think you want to rush through some of the studies and different things just because we.
So I
Set
mentioned
deadline.
that just because we can't hide behind a resolution forever, right? And timely manner is mentioned in that resolution. So I would hope we would be forthcoming now that the pandemic's lessening, thank goodness, that we can be more up to speed on getting the general plan moving a little bit more quicker than it has been. That's my only thought on that.
I think with the surveys coming in, that helps
I agree. They gathered the information now. I think
Yeah, I
the
think
plan will be
the wheels can
formulated.
start going a little faster, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is online. Anybody in this room can look at the results of the general plan to this point, as far as the surveys go.
Two more thoughts from the resolution. I mean, obviously water is mentioned in our resolution, both culinary and secondary water. I sure hope, I know the state legislature passed a bill this year that mandated all the water companies in Utah, secondary, to go to metering, and actually allowed low interest loans and financing, whatever, for that to happen. And I know Hooper Irrigation's on the low end of the totem pole compared to some of the big guys, but I would sure hope we can get metering in Hooper as quick as possible with that bill. Cause
Well, it's in place now. Any new subdivisions have to
Yeah.
put meters
Yeah.
on their secondary water.
because I don't know, I just see a lot of waste, you know, and I know we all do. And it's frustrating to be in the drought that we are and have people use the water that they are irresponsibly. And so thank goodness that's around the corner. I know with the drought and everything, that water is a concern, especially drinking water. And as mentioned earlier, one of the aquifers that we draw from, you know, who knows how good our aquifers are right now, you know, and where that water's coming from. So yes, that's a concern, and that's why it's in our resolution. And finally, from the resolution, it says, whereas if rezones are allowed to continue, requests for future rezoning may increase in an attempt to avoid further requirements imposed by the revised general plan. So I guess my biggest fear with this resolution and approving or disapproving rezones now is the precedents we set. If we approve one, does that mean we have to approve the next 20 that come in tomorrow or the next day or who knows when? If we disapprove one, does that mean we have to disapprove them all? Down the last paragraph, it says that rezones should be limited during the time it is updating the general plan. We didn't say, I know Reed mentioned 2 or 3 homes versus 60 acres or whatever, and somewhere in between. We didn't really define that. We just said limited. There's no hard definition of what we can and can't do. It's basically up to the commission and the council, based on this resolution, what to do. I do agree with that paragraph that says if rezones are allowed to continue, requests for future rezoning may increase in an attempt to avoid what the new general plan is going to impose. That makes sense to me, right? So, I mean, that's my 2 cents on the resolution. I like the resolution. I don't want to hide behind the resolution forever and ever and ever. That's not the intent of it. I was hoping a year, 18 months at the most, and then we can move along. Get the horse moving and the cart moving. But we did, as a council, vote for the resolution. I think to go totally against the resolution would not be smart. And that's my 2 cents. Yeah.
Okay, so I was never in favor of the resolution. So not only do I not live on an acre lot, or a half-acre lot, or a third-acre lot, I actually live on a quarter-acre lot, that somehow some city council, way before my time, approved in the east side of Hooper. So I don't know. So I didn't like the way the resolution came down. I didn't like the way the moratorium originally came down. I didn't like the feeling of the whole deal. Last time, because I was on the city council when they opened the general plan, we did not have a resolution. We worked through it. I don't think we're any, I trust in our council, and I trust in Tracy and what, the expertise they have. They have expertise I don't have about, where we can put lots in or whatever. So in fairness to all the people I represent, which is District 4 and 5, probably 90% of those are on half acre or less. And I mean, some of us are on quite a bit less. Because the city council, the city thought it deemed it okay to do. I had no idea. I didn't develop that land, I just bought one of the lots. I didn't have any idea that this was ever coming down, and I didn't ever have any idea I was going to be on the city council when this came down, and how ugly it has got. But I think the numbers are there. I don't know, I did not vote for the resolution. You see the vote on there, there was one person that didn't, and it was me. Okay, so that being said, I got outvoted. I'm good at that. I think it makes us a stronger society and a stronger group if we can actually have opposing views on things and we can get together. I do agree with whoever on the planning commission said we are not on the same page. We are definitely not on the same page, and the city council is not on the same page. I don't know if this group's ever gonna be on that same page. But the fact of the matter is, I got outvoted on the resolution, which is not binding, by the way, and everything comes to the city council. So that's my 2 cents.
Am I supposed to give 2 cents?
You don't have to give any
You gotta
cents.
Yours
I
is
didn't
worth
bring my
20.
wallet.
All right.
Yours is worth 20.
I was not on council at the time that the resolution was voted on. I came in afterwards, and I actually, was not able to attend that meeting in general because I work nights. But I have read through it, and I've thought it through. And I don't think it's not permanent. We're not saying there will be no growth ever in Hooper, because that's just unrealistic. I think, however, as we're watching this commission, the planning commission, come together and work on some ways of bettering our city, helping our city, understanding the people, the community of in this area, what we want, I think we have to be cautious before we make a decision, as we listen to what they've got going, as we listen to what the citizens are concerned about and what they would want us to do. Now, that doesn't mean we always do what they want us to do, because there might be different things happening. But as we look at things, and as it was voted upon, I think you just stay within that until that so-called timely manner comes to an end, and then things are more set for the developers or people dividing their land or whatever it may be.
Can I share one more tidbit?
Sure.
So I sat through every meeting, every open house of when we did this back in 2014, every single one. I made a note, and at the time, it's like you said, it was open. Come in, share your thoughts, and we probably had 20 requests for rezone, just because people knew that there was something happening, and a lot of that was out west. A lot of it. In fact, I highlighted my map in black for every property that came in, and it was black all over the place. And so, in spite of that, though, I mean, not everybody got their way, and that's just the nature of it. Is well, the final decision of the Planning Commission at the time said, here's the area that can be served by the vacuum sewer system. I explained at the time that the capacity there, that was the limits. And a lot of people out west got disappointed. You're not going to be on the land use map for smaller lots and that. So I just wanted you to know. I mean, when you talk about the rush that could happen, I mean, it did happen, but a decision was made. This is where it's going to be, and I think you have the strength of this group and the ability, with the help of the Planning Commission, the group, to make hard decisions again. And some people will be disappointed. So. Because that's a fact to happen
One thing I want to mention, just to finish my last comment, the time for citizens' input as a community is during this general plan process. We create a land use map that we use for the next 5 years, for example, but the process to change that is now, when the general plan is open. You know, when the general plan is closed and we have a land use map, like we have the last 6-7 years, to allow things to happen, the time for public input is over, because we're governed by that general land use map. And so if there ever was a time to get your neighbors and friends out to voice their opinion on what you want Upper to look like, it's now during the general plan when it's open, because we change things from public input on the general plan now, not when it's closed a year from now and for the next 5 years. You know, we're bound to that, right? So please come in. You know, do the survey, whatever, send emails. I don't know.
We have the survey, plus there's those maps
Yeah.
that are set up back there that you can come in and look at and
And
provide some comments.
that was our, not complaint, but our concern last time, was the lack of public input last time. We had very little, and we made a decision based on the input that we got to change the land use map, which we thought was a good decision back then. So,
Right. And we do like seeing people. We like people here versus empty chairs. So we appreciate you giving your time and your concern to the same things that we are concerned about.
Well, is there any other discussion?
I had a quick question for Councilman Northrup and Councilman Hill, because I think you guys have brought up some good points. I did vote for the resolution. I didn't vote for the moratorium prior to that, but I did vote for the resolution based on limiting growth.
For a short time,
My-
one council meeting.
My concern, and Councilman Hill brought this up, is that, is what's timely. State code says 180 days, 6 months on both their different definitions. We're at 7, I don't know if we'll end at 12, if we'll end at 18, if we'll end at 24. I just think as a city, we gotta be careful. So, that's my, it's not about setting precedents. Somebody might come in with 50 homes and maybe it's a draw on the infrastructure. I don't think the 8 acres is.
Well, is there any other discussion on the rezone from R1 to R2? It's been applied for by Ryan Fisher.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the rezone from R1 to R2, approximately 4965 south, 6300 west, for 8.39 acres.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed.
3 opposed, 2 ayes. That did not pass.
So do we make another motion to, that was it?
Good discussion.
So just a little bit of information I received during that from the chairman of the planning commission. The WFRC is estimating the zoning overlay maps be available for citizens' comments during tomato days, which is a great time because you're all going to come this year. So make sure your opinion is noted.
Spread the word.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have final approval for Christensen Fairway subdivision. So Tracy, we'll turn some time over to you.
Hang on, Mayor, and I was ordered. Okay, there we go. Now I'm in. Okay, so this is the Christensen Fairway subdivision located just up the street here, 5500 south, or west, about 3900 south. This is a one-lot subdivision on 2.2 acres, and they're here for final plat approval. I'm sorry that date is from the planning commission date, I didn't get that updated, so. Anyway, that's, yeah, just one lot. The whole property in this area was rezoned several years ago. And even though this is a big lot, the reason it benefits from the R2 zone is because of the frontage out on 5500 West. R2 only requires 100 feet, and that represents acceptable frontage out there, but it is a big lot. And so as a single lot subdivision, they're able to be in one meeting with the planning commission and one meeting with the city council, so they're here for final plat approval. This is what the plat looks like, very simple. Again, just frontage on 5500 West where they can access the property, and a big lot to build one single home on. Okay. So when this came before the planning commission for review, all the items in our city staff's memos had been completed. That included a final plat and improvement drawings had been updated. In the memo that the planning commission had, there were two remaining items that were completed before, before the meeting. I just didn't get a chance to update the memo. One of them had in reference to an easement that was needed, and another in reference to some additional right-of-way that we needed on 5500 West to be dedicated as part of this. And they were updated directly following the last staff memo. So I wanted the planning commission at the time to be sure they knew that we had seen and approved all the items that we had in the memo in our reviews. Final will serve letters have been provided by Taylor West Weaver Water Improvement District, Hooper Irrigation. Final approval has been provided by the Weaver Fire Marshal. And we have the other required letters from Dominion Energy and Rocky Mountain Power to say that all of these entities that are outside of our city have said that they approved this one lot subdivision. So that was a report that went to the planning commission, and I believe that they, and I wasn't there, but I believe they unanimously recommended final plat approval to the council for this one lot.
Tracy,
Yeah.
Tracy, can you talk to us about flag lots? Like, this may appear to be a flag lot, but tell us why that's not a flag lot.
Because it has the minimum frontage on a public street, 100 feet.
100 feet. Okay, thank you.
And that's where the house has to face, right?
Not necessarily,
You wouldn't necessarily have to face.
but that's where they're gonna get access to their house.
The difference would be like a driveway that's just cut in and built a flag, right? Not
Yeah.
having a lot and building wherever you want on your lot.
Less than 100 feet.
Right. Thank you.
They'd have to be 150 if it was acre.
If it was, in the R1, it'd have to be 150 feet wide out there. And this really, when the rezone was looked at 5 years ago, it wasn't intended to look like this at all. We anticipated a 7 or 8 lot subdivision. Now we've got this one, and next time you'll hear about the one right below it, another 1 lot subdivision. So just 2 lots on this large piece, so.
Okay. So do we have someone here to represent the Christensen Fairway subdivision? You just state your name and address and.
That's Steve Austin, and my address is 406 North, 5000 West in West Point. But my wife's from Hooper, and we've been here involved for quite a while. So.
She's probably a Christensen.
She is. Larry likes to golf, and he hits golf balls out into
That's
the
what I'm wondering, is there gonna be a
Widdison
fairway there?
piece. So that is the name Christensen Fairway for the reason.
Okay. So do we have any questions for Mr. Austin?
Things have been approved.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I think you guys have an extremely difficult job. I go to a lot of city meetings. So, although I've never developed in Hooper, and I'm not speaking as a developer, I have built in Hooper before, and I go to an awful lot of city meetings in other cities. And I think you guys are doing the best you can. But I did want to remind everybody, even the citizens, that just because something is rezoned, and I know this doesn't have anything to do with my particular project, but does not mean that it's going to have a bunch of houses on it. And I think this is a perfect example of that. That may have been zoned 1/2 acres, but Kelly Taylor was gracious enough to sell me that piece so that I could have frontage to access my back property. And had he not done that, and had this not zoned for 1/2 acres, that basically would have been a flag lot. Was a very good question. So I think there's just a lot of things we got to consider when we do that. So I appreciate your time. I hope I'm not speaking out of place in a citizen comment or something, but I do just want everybody to remember to think outside the box a little bit. And thanks for your hard work on it.
Thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Is there any other discussion here?
I'll make a motion, we approve, final approval for the Christensen Fairway subdivision, 3870 South, 5500 West.
Do we have a motion? Second. And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next on the agenda, we have final approval for the Whittison subdivision of 24 lots.
Okay, so here's again, I've highlighted the area that covers the H&L Whittison subdivision. And they're here for final plat approval, went to the planning commission back in April. Had been through preliminary and now asking for the council to give final plat approval. This is 24 lots on 16 acres. This also is in the R2 zone. And you'll notice where it sits, about 4,700 south and about 6,000 west. I look back at my record on my computer. We actually started this back in January of 2020. So it's been around a while. They got preliminary plat approval sometime in 2020 and then kind of went away for a while. And somebody made a comment in the planning commission about some of the obstacles and things, and as a staff, we make sure that all those things are handled, and so sometimes it takes a little while to get through it, but they have now handled that. So here's the plat. It's a connection to the road 4700 south in the Low subdivision, and then a couple of stub streets into the property to the south that are required by our ordinance to provide access for future development. And so they have 24 lots. Many of them, around the 24,000 square foot. There are a few that are in the 30s, and one big one in the corner that's 47,000 square feet. In order to make everything fit, there usually ends up being kind of a variety, but still a minimum frontage of 100 feet in the R2 zone. So when this came before the planning commission back in April, again, we had stated that all the items in the city staff's review memos had been completed, including the final plat and the improvement drawings updated to staff satisfaction. And then again, all the final approval letters from the outside entities have been received. And until we have those things, it's not done. And so we got all of that, and it went to the planning commission, and I believe they recommended final plat approval to the city council. Don't know if there was other discussion. I wasn't there, but typically, when it gets this far, there's not a lot that they say, as long as the staff has given the checklist approval. So any questions for me about the H&L Whittison subdivision?
Okay. Thank you, Tracy. Sure. Do we have someone here to represent the H&L Whittison subdivision?
Kenny Palmer. Address is 3062 West, 4375 South in Roy. And, we've got a subdivision here that met all the qualifications, falls within the law and the zoning, and we just got to ask for our approval.
Okay, does the council have any questions for Mr. Palmer?
I was at that meeting, and I think that Commissioner Simpson gave them commendation for having their ducks in a row, so it seems like they did everything they needed to do to make it work.
Was unanimous, by the way.
Okay.
What took so long? You said they started in 2020. What was?
Oh, don't get me started.
Okay.
Brad, it's
I appreciate
It's a
it.
long meeting, we'll make it longer.
And that's why there's,
Okay,
yeah.
good enough.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Is there any other discussion among council members? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant final approval to the Whittison subdivision at 66,000 west, 4,700 south.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, next on the agenda, we have to adopt the tentative budget report that the council had a chance to go over about a week ago. And once we adopt this report, then there'll be a public hearing for all the residents of Hooper and to review that. So as I understand it, this takes a motion to tentatively adopt this budget report.
You have to adopt the tentative budget.
Right.
So we adopt the tentative budget, and then have public hearing and adopt the
And
final.
then we actually put
Finals
the
in
finals
June.
in place.
After public comment or whatever.
Right.
Ryan, did anyone have any input after we met as far as any changes? Or were we good?
I wanted to ask Teresa, you said you did make changes based on our recommendations. Just in a nutshell, what were some of
Well,
those?
we had to add the increase for Central Weaver Sewer District. So that was the only change that wasn't on the report that you saw. And then we still had the cemetery program that I left in there for you guys until you talked to Sherry. So that's why I was informing that that was still there. Other than that, everything is still the same, what we went over on the report.
I know we had a discussion about the budget for the planning department.
Yeah,
Did you?
I actually came in and talked to Teresa a little bit about that because it was, I think, and she could probably clarify it better than I could because I think we were counting a salary as coming from that budget, but yet the salary was covered by
I guess it's
So we increased the budget for that department based on the contracts that we pay out, plus the three-quarter time position that we were going to hire for in the future.
So the planning commission budget, one of the biggest differences we saw is when we budgeted last year, we budgeted based on having one full-time employee who was also our city inspector and was doing the planning position. He ended up leaving us shortly after that budget was finalized, and so we ended up going with contractors to do our city inspections. And so it showed a huge difference from what we had actually budgeted this year for what we actually expended this year. The biggest thing about that budget is it is fully covered by building permits. The reason we charge building permits is so that we can pay those inspection fees and then also cover any office work that has to happen to make sure the planning can go through and that the building permits are clear and submitted to the state. So right now, even looking at what we had budgeted for this year in the tentative budget, the revenue from building permits fully covers that budget.
But it is a full-time, technically it'd be a full-time employee if we
So,
had it in-house.
With
plus
it, that is
three-quarter
including,
time.
so that would be a three-quarter time office employee, and that person would actually help with subdivisions and zoning too, which when I calculated the revenue, I didn't even factor in any of the zoning and subdivision fees that we do get in. This was based fully on building permits.
But we are increasing the overall expense of that position.
We are,
by an extra
we are.
$65,000.
But in all truth, the city has been struggling for years trying to do the office work that has to go on. Our city recorder took a big beating by trying to cover that and to do what she is required to do in the office. We need that help.
Sure.
And as the city grows, that help is even more necessary.
Agreed.
Any other questions on that?
Perfect.
So I think we'll probably have more discussion on that.
Yeah, don't,
You guys make me terrified and nervous up here.
no, that,
We are sharing.
I know.
I would say we have to talk about that more, but
the duties of that position is what we need to
Yeah.
talk about.
Yeah, I have not posted that
Right,
position.
right.
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
So all of you have copies of that, right?
we got the
That you
meeting
can
before
review.
last.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
I would like to see it posted soon, so we probably ought to, if anybody has any input, you know, do it now, because obviously they need the help.
Maybe we could put it on the agenda for next time.
Yeah.
You what?
I'll,
He
could-
wants
we
it on
could-
the agenda for next time.
Okay.
Send an email and have some
That's, do we want to wait that long? I mean, if
I-
you just want to have some input and we can review with all of you during
I need
the
to
time.
review it
Yeah,
still.
I don't think
I'm not
we'll
ready.
resolve it tonight.
I'm not ready to talk.
Right, not tonight, okay.
Yeah,
so next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
so I think next meeting, let's come prepared and
And make a final,
hammer it.
yep,
I was listening
yep,
to
yep.
Councilman Cox, I was listening to you from October, and you were like, everyone show up, and be ready and prepared, and we'll knock this out. And I'm like, man, we still have this. So,
Well, what would really help is if you'll just review what you currently have. See, we've written up a position description, and all of you should have it.
yeah,
So if you'll look at that and then just, I mean, if you, I'd like to think that you could just make some adjustments on it rather than just rewrite the whole thing.
Yes.
And if we could have those in before the meeting, that would help us on that.
So as part of this motion on number 5, do we need to set a date for the public hearing?
It's the first council meeting in June,
Thank you.
which I don't have a calendar to tell me the exact date on that, but it's the first council meeting in
first
June.
Thursday in June.
Yeah.
Third.
June 3rd?
Yeah.
Look at you.
I thought she was saying Thursday, no, I'm not being sad.
So I'll make a motion that we adopt the tentative budget report for 2021-2022 and set the public hearing date as June 3rd, 2021 to amend the 2020-2021 budget and approve the 21-22 budget certified tax rate.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I'm sure you're done.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Kind of love finance.
I'm just reading it.
That was a
Good
lot
job.
of, that was a lot of numbers to say.
Okay, item number 6, presentation from Brad Buse and Lewis Meyer. They was unable to get some of the people to attend tonight, so if we could just have a motion to table that.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to table that agenda item to our next agenda. They did say that the soccer folks should be level for that, so.
Okay, so we have a motion to table that.
Second?
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
You did say
Okay.
the next meeting, right?
Next meeting, right. Table to the next meeting. Okay, last item on the agenda is a discussion on the Hooper North Park upgrades. And so, again, this is Councilman Paulson, you and Councilman Hill wanted to discuss this, and
Yeah, we got dark now, but, so,
Can't
so,
walk out.
after last meeting, as Councilman Hill and I were walking out, one of the things that we had discussed is, as a council last fall, I think we took a walk through the park, and we were trying to come up with that strategic plan of what that park would look like, and we just wanted to make sure, I guess as a group, that as we bring these grants in and we start to do this infrastructure build out, that on the same page, right? Is that, I mean,
Yeah, and I'm trying to think how we can do that. Can we have a work meeting? Like, we had a work meeting,
it seemed like we did it that night, so what did we do?
well, we,
Didn't
The
we
public
have,
brought along?
we've
didn't
had
that,
work meetings.
we've had so many work meetings with the grant committee. I thought it was cut and dried. All the information Sherry presented to us, and I thought it was set.
So we're set on the location and everything?
I don't remember us deciding the
When we
location.
applied for the RAP
In
grant,
fact,
We have
Sherry,
to.
maybe we could just have you come up,
I can't
review this with us, and
Because like even
Yeah, so we had RAP grant committee meetings held in like
guess our discussion was, so the playground setup, right? So, you did a great job, and I'm shocked at, but like Councilor, I want to call you Councilman Cox.
That's
but I
fine.
can't get over that, sorry, Lisa.
That's okay.
She had brought up that we, what if we want to put a disability swing, right? Those are things that we haven't
Well,
discussed.
and that-
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we
because I
did.
sent you an
We
email
did.
and
We
I
got
was-
that email back.
No, that came back after the meeting. What I'm saying is, last meeting when we talked about it, we as a council had discussed that. We discussed the swing set, the play set last time. We didn't discuss what the pickleball court looks like. We didn't discuss what amenities are going with the pickleball court.
Or
We
where
didn't
it's
discuss
going.
what the basketball court looks like or what type of hoops we're putting. We didn't discuss, last meeting, we got presented with some developers.
So last
And we saw the
meeting,
bids.
we approved the budget to pay for
Yeah.
all of these improvements.
So before
And then
the-
at that time, we said, hey, we'll have another meeting afterwards and discuss the details of this. We want to have that.
Play of what equipment,
Okay,
what.
so before the ramp grants were ever approved, we did discuss what they were going to look like, and if you remember, I told you to go look out at like Smith and Edwards, that we were designing is similar to that, and Chris, if you remember, you were on that committee. I
Yep.
can't remember if you came to any meetings or not, no, you were. And so I told you to go look at that, and there were the 4 pickleball courts, there were the 2 basketball courts with the 6 hoops, with a 1-acre parking lot. But all of that was voted on by city council back in December, so I could get the ramp grants written and submitted in January.
So I guess my discussion, when we walked out there before, we talked about that hill out on the side there, is where the parking lot would go. Then we changed, we said, what if the parking lot was in between the trees?
I think Sherry has all of this
Yeah.
on paper that you can review and just look at that, because we've
Yeah, it never was a
gone
question.
through this.
It never has changed.
It has-
In fact, I have a big packet because they're.
I never saw the details.
I mean, I never saw the grant proposal. I
Well-
helped write letters for the grant, but I never saw the grant proposal.
So in our last
You're bad.
meeting, as we approved the money to get approval, we said, hey, we're going to meet and talk about this,
Or we said,
talk about
or
the
said we could
details.
talk about it via.
We said that just 2 weeks ago, right?
You know, I guess I was under the impression that the ramp grant committee was going to do that and take care of that, and when you okayed it last month, that's what you were okaying?
We were okay
I
in
mean,
the
you're welcome
budget.
to look at this. This
And
is what
money.
was submitted. This is what everybody approved when we submitted this in January.
Yeah,
You'll
we
see
got that
the
paper,
little-
we got that map.
Okay, and it shows the playground.
And
So
the
that,
playground's gonna be up here.
okay, and so then we move on to the pickleball courts.
So I guess I misunderstood. Going back and we pulled minutes. So when we talked about the pickleball courts, we talked about applying to get 4, but we had set money aside for up to 8. And we thought we
No,
would see what would happen with the ramp
no,
grant once we got it.
No, money was set aside for 4. We applied for 4, and that's all for
And we
my.
set 250,000 aside.
That's for 4.
That's 8. It was $30,000 a quarter.
It isn't,
Well,
because
it
I.
was.
We have to
No.
contribute to those ramp grants. Our portion, that's part of our portion.
Yeah.
I understand. When I made the motion to put $250,000 aside for the pickleball courts, it was for up to 8. It was $30,000 a court, which would have been $240,000.
Yeah, but that's not,
We-
I don't know,
We
Chris.
changed that, and that's fine when we submitted for the ramp grant. I'm not saying we did anything wrong, but the discussion was open. Remember, we said if we don't get the ramp grants, we would go back to use the money that we set aside to cover the pickleball courts.
And-
So how that's all been allocated or decided didn't come through this group at the end once we got the grants.
So 4 pickleball courts are $254,540 for 4,
Because
not for 8.
costs are out, yeah, through the roof.
No, that's the same it was when I applied in January. Those are the same costs. And what I was told from city council when I came in and you told me what to write the grants for, you told me 4 pickleball courts.
I didn't know,
And
that,
the
you're correct.
$250,000, and so that's what we asked for, was for the money to pay for 4 pickleball courts.
The grants are correct. I'm not arguing the grant fact. You did a great job on that.
Didn't we discuss that leave some area for more
Yes.
develop later?
Yeah, you know, one thing you need to understand too when you apply for ramp grants is when they go through the point system, part of the point system is on sustainability. because they don't want to give a city money and then have the city come back a year later and say, I'm sorry, we can't afford to maintain what you've given us this money for. So I think that was when you voted for the $250,000 for the 4 and the basketball courts. We were actually doing that, thinking, okay, as a small community of Hooper, we can start with 4 that we can maintain. Because we've never had pickleball courts before. The unknown to us is the sustainability and the maintenance on them because we've never had them. So,
Okay, I think the problem is here, let's just settle this really quickly. I think a couple of the council members feel like, you did a fantastic job, by the way, Sherry. I mean, we really appreciate everything you've done. But they were thinking that we voted on the approval of the money, but we didn't get, the council did not get a say on the rest. So that's where I think rubber meets the road, really simply. And I think if that happened in the future, that would go over a lot better.
but I think, I guess, a little bit of my, and I'll say the word frustration because I feel that, is because I came to quite a few meetings over and over and presented, we voted, approved, presented, we voted, approved. And I feel like we're kicking a dead horse down the road again because I'll tell you my philosophy, people that get stuff done do it. So I feel like we did it, we applied, we have the money, and you approved the bids. And so now, the mayor actually has the ramp grants to sign, saying, yes, we approve that, but I told him, you better hold off. Because I was a little bit leery now of what you're going to say, and also for the bid for the playground. They're ready to get going next month on the playground.
I think we were in congruence with the playground when we said it over. I don't hear anyone dissent on that. We said, that's great, replace that one swing with the other swing, and we're good.
Yeah.
We just wanted to be included on the details. Where are they going?
Yeah.
What are they going to look like? What's the lights going to look like? What's the fence going to look like? What's all these details of this?
Where's the exit point out of the courts?
Yeah.
Where's the exit point in the courts?
Where's the parking in conjunction to,
Some of those things like the exit in and out are probably still to be determined when they come and actually do the engineering and stake that out. Well, we received the ramp grant was for 4 pickleball courts, 2 basketball courts, and a 1-acre parking lot.
So where are we staking it out at?
So that's,
where's the
and one
location?
thing too, when we met clear back, and this was probably August, we talked about having a ramp grant committee and 2 people from the city council being on it, 2 people from the planning commission. Any of you could have came to those meetings if you would have liked to and could have heard all those details. Because and you're right, Ryan, when it comes to the exact where the fence and all that is, there's not a lot of variance on what you can do as far as fencing and lighting. There's kind of a standard when you get your bid for the pickleball courts, and you're welcome. And I think you actually all received a copy of this, this was the bids, that told you exactly the size of the fence. It told you the dimensions of the lights, how many there were going to be. So I think you already had all the exact details, exactly where the fence entrance is going to be. Again, we won't know that until we get our engineers to come out and stake all that.
So which part of the park is it going in?
So it's down there on the,
Did you decide that on the committee?
The west.
yeah, we had a big map and we talked about that.
You could have forgot.
I never.
That's by the dirt pile.
Ryan, so we talked about it, and it was going to be, where that hill is and the trees, and then there's that work. Because I remember talking about it, Ryan, because you brought up, so we're losing a soccer field. Why do we want to lose a soccer field? But then we brought up, and you and I were having this discussion when I was at city council meeting. We said, even though we're losing one soccer field, we still have plenty of soccer fields in the park. And so it's on this lower, let me turn you in the right direction. So there's where the rows of trees are. It's just right down here in the southwest corner. And because we talked about not part of the ramp grant, but in future time, Hooper even maybe having an RV dump station that could be on the west side of that parking lot.
Out west there.
So I know we
were
did.
going to do that RV, I thought we were going to do the RV dump, the junctions we put the
Right,
parking lot.
that's right. I hope so
that's
too.
not
I
part
hope
of
so
the ramp
too.
grant. That would be
Right,
Hooper
that's
City.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that's the city.
But that, going back to that, so we didn't say in the future, we said we were going to do that with that project, right? That's,
Well, that was a Hooper City expense, so
Yeah.
it would be
Right.
funding and all of that.
so we probably should.
Yeah, but I remember us specifically talking about losing that, soccer field, and we said, but even if we lose that one, we still have this, we still have this whole other end. Which, it was really good today because I saw baseball kids playing, I saw soccer, there were kids down here playing lacrosse or something. And I love soccer, but it was really nice to me to see this park being used. I think it's the purpose of the pickleball and basketball. You know, we are a small community. We want to have a lot of different things here, not just catering to one sector of activities that families are going to participate in.
So tell us again on the parking lot. Is it going to be an extension of our parking lot or a whole separate parking lot?
Whole separate, 1 acre, because it was less expensive to do it on a flat area that could have a separate entrance coming in. Again, until we have the engineering done, which I need to talk to Tracy because they come and, you know, stake it out for us, which is our next, but I was waiting until we heard.
By the way, Tracy.
Oh, by the way.
Because they just,
You got your hammer and stakes with you tonight, Tracy? I'll help you measure that out.
I got a flashlight.
yeah,
I'm
but,
always in the dark.
you know, Parkin said, I mean, that's one thing we do, we stake it out, because I know before Dave Strong came and helped us on the pavilion out here. And we talked about last time putting the pavilion and probably some park benches by the pickleball courts.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you took the time to drive out to Plain City and look at theirs, how they have a pickleball court, and they have I mean, that's not a big pavilion, but it's a little bit of a, you know, shelter. So, yeah. I mean, anytime, I have this folder, if ever you have any questions, just please ask, because it's an overwhelming job writing the grants. And I felt like this time we'd covered all of our bases. You know, I felt like I'd been here more than you ever wanted to see me, saying, okay, these are the round grants, should we do this one, do you want this? And
So don't take away from you. You do an amazing job with the grants. I know you're frustrated. I don't think that was our intention to frustrate you.
yeah.
So the committee decided the location, the number of courts, the basketball, the whole 9 yards. The committee.
Apparently we did report back to you very clearly. Sorry.
But, you know, we
Okay.
kind of went by budget means too, because we kind of were, you know, tailoring, we kind of looked around at what some others were, what other people had done, and,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Sherry?
No.
I talked really fast.
When do we
Okay, so where are we?
Yeah, when do we break
You
this?
know,
So are we okay now? I mean, we can go ahead and sign the
Do I
grant
sign,
or
or
agree
do you
to?
want to?
I thought we'd done that 2 weeks ago.
Well,
When we approved
we
it.
did, but then when I saw her on the agenda, I
Well,
thought,
we
oh
approved the
no.
signing it and getting
Right.
going with it. I think our question just was some specifics. It
Yeah.
wasn't even a big question.
Yeah, well, the playground, we're actually signing for that design. You know, the park and tennis courts, we are, when they come, we are saying 4 pickleball courts, and I actually said to him, we would like them designed at a possibility if we sometime wanted to expand, so that'll be again when we're staking them out. But again, it comes down to maintenance and sustainability.
So I know this is silly, but like Councilman Northrop just jokingly, I think, said, what color are they going to be? And I mean, I guess
Go up there and look
I
at
don't know.
I guess that's
I've been
like some of
out
the
of
things
those.
that you're like, so what
It
is the color? We go
has
green,
to
we
be
go
red
red, we go.
because we like tomatoes here.
Okay, I think we're good here.
Good.
I think we're.
Don't go to Plain City. You don't even have to get out of the car.
So
You
we're
don't- you
mimicking
don't
Plain
even
City,
have to get out.
No,
On Main Street, Plain City.
Plain City has that overhead that was fun.
The Plain City was right by the old elementary.
You don't even have to get out of your car to get a really good look at it.
No, it's
Yeah.
basically on the road.
It's probably far west. I don't think it's Plain City.
There is
Oh,
some
it is
right
Plain
in
City.
downtown.
Right downtown.
Downtown.
We'll take a field trip.
Yeah.
We'll take you on a field trip.
Okay, well, I've been to this with Nick.
Okay, are there any other items on that? If not, we would entertain,
We got citizens' comments.
oh, citizens,
Citizen comments.
citizens comment, any other comments?
My name is Tracy Borbo. I live at 4923, of course I never really, 4926 West, 5350 South. Sherry just nailed it on the head. I feel like for the last year I've been kicking a dead horse, and we're no closer. Where my property line is, behind my property line is the Christensen's. Beth Widdowson used to live there, and it's the Christensen. There's a ditch. The farmer came, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, and dug the ditch and made it wider over mine and Howard Klein's. Took it out. Now I am losing my property, I'm losing my landscaping, and the fence is about to go. I've had Hopper City come, I I've had secondary water come. I've had Wilson water come. It's not theirs. I've asked the Christensens. It's not theirs. I called up Weber County, told them where I live. It's not theirs. Okay? I've talked to everybody. The only person I've talked to is the governor of Utah and the president of the United States. We keep finding out, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. I am losing property. Brad walked my property line and you nearly lost your foot, right?
About fell in, yeah.
Because where the fence is, there's gaps. And the water, the soil is eroding. Yesterday there was 2 feet of water in the ditch. The trees that the farmer dug out are leaning against and pushing against my fence. If any of you guys live where I live, you'll get it done. It will be done in a heartbeat. Because it is a disgrace. It is a junkyard back there with all the trees and the weeds and everything else. The ditch was there before I was. So I'm not saying get rid of the ditch. Because it was there before I was. What I'm saying is, something's got to be done, or we're going to lose the fence. If the fence goes, it's going to cost the city the same as what it would cost for $250,000. Okay, so I need to know, are we getting any closer to getting sort of, because we were so close to putting dirt down, and then all of a sudden, it's the Weber County Commission. No, it's not theirs, because I spoke to them, and it don't belong to them. And I'm passionate about this, because it's my yard.
They dug the ditch.
Okay.
Weber County dug the ditch.
Okay.
And this, just so you know, I think this is a really good case in point. This is why we have developers pipe ditches today. I mean, they don't want to do that. If a ditch is on their property or adjacent to, we require them to pipe it so that we don't have this problem that you're having. The ditch is more than just, it's not irrigation water. That ditch is picking up groundwater.
Nope.
No.
A little bit.
No, it's not.
Tailwater.
Huh?
No.
Tailwater.
There's tailwater.
No, it's not. It is coming down from.
I'm really familiar with where you're talking about. See, the problem here in Hooper, if you call it a problem, years and years ago, they have dug a lot of deep drain ditches to take care of the groundwater so they could farm it. If they didn't have all these deep ditches in there, they could have never farmed the ground. The water would have come up, created alkali type soils, and if you look all up to the southeast of you, where there's no drain ditches, that's the type of dirt there would be everywhere. But that's not the type of dirt by you, because they put in a deep ditch, they're pulling out groundwater all the time. Now, it does pick up tailwater. However, we have a member of the Wilson Irrigation Company who works for them today that said they're now rerouting this tailwater. They don't dump tailwater into that ditch anymore. It now goes down 47.
You want to see the picture? There's 2 feet of water in that just today.
And I said,
And yesterday too. So.
We had last summer, and this is not lying, we had 12 inches of
The question is, who can help her? I guess it's.
Well, how do we go forward?
So that's the question.
I guess
Who
can help
all
her?
is going to help you? Because you do need to have, no one wants to see your chain link fence go over.
So
I mean,
can we
we've
as a
been
city
along
ever
that.
get to the right people?
Well, the thing is,
Or do we?
I know Tracy's got the stop sign up, so I'll talk for Tracy.
Well,
Will the city?
Don't blame
I'm
Tracy.
sorry. I'm taking the 3 minutes over.
Oh, exactly. So they're asking, will the city redig that ditch to the inside a little bit? That section, that 200 feet to the inside there. Kelly Christensen's already okayed that we get on his land. I've already talked to him. Would the city bring down their backhoe and dig that ditch to the inside and push that dirt up against their fence?
Could we do that?
Would you do that? That's what Tracy's asking.
It's a yes or no question. It is Tracy.
I'm Tracy too.
You do need help with that.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's
mean,
been over a year.
I don't want to, okay, we'll get you taken care of.
So that's a
We'll
yes.
try to, that's a yes. We hope to get the Weber County involved. I don't think Wilson Irrigation, I think they've rerouted that water to where it shouldn't go down there anymore. However, there are those people who, when they're done irrigating, and they've left their water run a little too long, and they just go and shut their head gate, they don't worry about where the water goes at.
I know Kelly Christensen told me that water is being used by Stan. He uses that on that property. He told me that personally. I went and talked to him last week.
That's who irrigates it.
Yeah, I know. So he's using that water. You're saying it's tailwater, which actually isn't true. He's using that water.
Okay, you know what I mean by tailwater?
Yeah. But I'm just saying, when that ditch is full of water, it's not groundwater. When that ditch is full of water, I talked to Kelly, he said that Stan uses that water. So we can't block that water off.
No, you just can't go fill in the ditch.
No, exactly.
We're not saying that, we're saying.
Sometimes,
You know, she's raised the issue. Why don't you work with her and come back to
figure it out.
council and
No,
then
no, no,
meeting?
Let's do
listen,
this.
I've been looking at you with a man.
More
And I
than
know
you.
you're busy, but you know what? A year, I'm cooking a dead horse and it's not moving.
We'll get it,
okay, all right. Well, thank you,
we'll
Tracy.
keep our eye on that and get it fixed.
All right, I'll be at the next council meeting.
Any other citizens' comments?
I don't know how I'm gonna follow something like that. I just wanted to say thank you tonight, for listening to your citizens. You're straight in line in alignment with the commission on the Article 1 Scholarship 2 zones, so thank you for that. The only other thing, that I wanted to mention was, it's really hard, and I'm just speaking for me and my husband, but it's really hard for us to look at the agenda and have citizen comment first. Because sometimes we don't understand what you all have read through for a week or two, and we have to stand up and go, this is on the agenda, but I don't really know what it means. So I would just ask that you consider having the agenda item, the city council, somebody walking through, this is what this means, and then open it up to citizen comment, because I would have said way more than I did had I known what was going on, so.
Okay.
So we actually changed that from
Yeah,
the way the format was before.
We didn't used to have citizen comment before at all.
We got
used to only have
complaints.
it after.
We got complaints that it wasn't first, so we put it first.
Yeah.
So what your thought is, if we went through and explained the agenda items, what they're about to begin with, then you may have some comments on it.
Right, like this.
Isn't that how the planning commission does it? The planning commission do it that way still?
Yeah, when we had one outside, and the whole citizens, we all went,
Okay.
I got something to talk about.
All right.
But citizen comments really ought to be on things unrelated to them.
I'm Kelly Taylor, I
Otherwise,
live at
everything's
3620 South, 5500 West in Hooper. And I never heard about pickleball field or pickleball courts until about 3 weeks ago. And that was from Brad Buse. And so everybody that plays pickleball, he plays pickleball with the commissioner here. So I look at, they asked who wants this for the area. Well, everybody's looking at soccer fields and pickleball things and basketball courts. What about the people that have horses? You can't ride down a road in Hooper now. They're widening our road because of all the houses going in. My granddaughter, rode her horse through a subdivision where we used to ride because it was a dirt road to get to the park where we want to go. And the horse took a dump in the road, and now it's social media that somebody's horse went in the road. People walk down our roads and their dogs crap on your lawn and they keep going and it doesn't get posted on social media. The road, because of all the subdivisions, they're doing 50 miles an hour down there and it's only a 30. I've had people that live on Chris's road complain that they do the same thing on his road coming out of that subdivision. And just because they want to build an 8 subdivision house doesn't mean that that road's not going to get expanded like ours. We complained when they wanted to do ours and they just blew it through because it was zoned for that. And now we got to deal with the problems. They had the road closed for a week and the guys was blowing through there at 50 miles an hour, didn't care about the road closed signs, the construction workers, or nothing. But there needs to be some stuff like I think more people would use the dunk station than the pickleball field. But I don't know because I just heard about the pickleball. But I think there needs to be more stuff out here for the community that has horses and stuff like that than pickleball fields and more soccer stuff. Thank you.
That's what I was saying. The East End likes pickleball, West End likes horses.
Sorry, it's late, and yelling as well. I just had a couple of, Amanda Prince, 1693 West, 5300 South. I just had a couple of suggestions that I think might help a little bit with some of the frustrations that I think you guys get here and that we get at the planning commission. I would love to see something just like a simple flow chart of how things work. Like there's a rezone meeting, there's preliminary approval, final approval, so that people understand how the process works and when their comments hold the most weight. I think you guys experience it here, we do in the planning commission where we have people come, something's up for final approval, and they're voicing their frustration about it at that time, and at that point, there's really nothing that we can do about it. I just think it would be good if we came up, I don't know if you guys are the ones that do that, or if we, in the planning commission or the city staff, just something like a simple flow chart that we can post maybe on the city page, maybe on the community pages for the Facebook groups, just so people are aware of how things work. I think that a lot of people don't really understand that process, and I think it would be helpful. The only other comment I had is, I've heard it mentioned a few times that people aren't aware of what's going on with the general plan revisions. I think it would be great if you guys could attend like the open houses or the focus groups or the advisory committee meetings. Those are all public, and I have seen a few of the city council members on there, but that's a great way to find out what the community is wanting, and I think that's something that you guys need to be aware of even more so than what we do on the planning commission. So thank you.
Mary Simpson, 4311 South, 5900 West. I just want to take 1 minute and let you, everyone know, everyone that's in this room, the survey that we just did is now closed, and there is an 18-page summary of all of the questions that were asked, and it shows the percentage. We had 550 responses. It shows the percentage, the majority of who answered which questions. It's very informative. If you want to be informed about what's going on with our general plan and what we're trying to do, please go to the planhooper.weebly.com and click on the tab for the, I think it's Get Involved, and then it'll show you where the surveys are. So these summaries are all there for both survey 1 and 2, plus many comments. We captured all of the comments that people wrote on the either online or on their paper surveys. All of those comments are captured. And then there's also the feedback from the focus groups and all the comments that were captured there. So the Wasatch Front Regional Council has done a really good job in helping us. I feel like if our citizens would take a minute to go and read those, and if our city council was very well informed, then we can work together and things will move forward faster. Thank you.
Can you put that link that you spoke of in the notes?
I think if you go to the Hooper website, it will link you also.
Okay, are there any other comments? Okay, we'll bring it back to the council and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, we have some things that have to be read in.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's public comment.
Was it, what were these letters?
Make sure y'all know who covers.
Citizens' comments.
Anything citizen comments.
Public comment, it looks like, I guess.
I think you can just circulate those. If they want to make a public comment, they ought to be here.
Did they come in emails to us?
Some did. One of them was brought in.
Things that pertaining to things that were on the agenda, or?
No, that's why they didn't get read earlier, is because it's pertaining to just general things.
Just public comment for the April 8th meeting.
Okay.
Just give everybody a copy. You could send in the Bible and say, I'd like it read at the meeting.
Yeah.
But didn't we allow them to do this because of the pandemic rules? Wasn't this a temporary thing we were going to do? Otherwise, they need to be here, but How long are we gonna do this for?
So, do these pertain to things on the agenda? Or just?
Just
No, it looks like public comment and maybe, yeah, like you said, if you allowed it during the pandemic for a certain period, you might wanna
Right,
say when it stopped. but-
right.
Come to the meeting.
It's not.
Yeah. So I don't know, do you want me to just circulate these? Do you want me to read them? Or at least read the letter? I guess these ones are emails. Do you want me to read them quickly?
I can move over. I mean, I think moving forward, we probably should
I
start
think,
the process. They should be-
can you email them to the council?
Yeah.
Make copies and email them to the council. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor, you good with that?
Everybody have a copy and read it. You can't take action on them today.
That's
because
right.
It's not on the
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah.
So if she circulates
Yeah.
a copy to all of you,
Yeah.
you can read them.
Yeah.
If something
Okay.
needs to be addressed at
Right.
the next meeting, ask for it to be put on the
Right.
agenda.
Okay,
Okay.
let's do that.
Do that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good job.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Please.
You can.